Welcome, friends, to Breakfast in the Ruins, a Michael Moorcock-flavoured and genre fiction-focused podcast. Loz is back in Derry Toms to pick up part 2 of Fortress of the Pearl, and as always, we're accompanied on our journey by a dreamy slate of beers. Well, a dream to some. A nightmare to others! We do bang on a bit, so I'll keep this intro short, but the day I put all of our audio files into my editing suite, a package arrived on my doorstep that is just the first little piece of synchronicity around this episode. It was all the way from Greece, a cassette of Fortress of the Pearl by the black metal dungeon synth artist known as Fortress of the Pearl. It's a little bit of magic, and we'll play the show out with a title track, so stick around until the end. Also, the day before this drops, the Appendix N Book Club released their 133rd episode with a guest on their couch. Me. It was a delight, and Jeff and Hoi were just as warm and erudite in person as they are on their show. We talked about Paul Anderson's Operation Chaos, so tune in and find them on all good podcatchers, and, in particular, find the episode where they talked to Mike himself. Whilst we were chatting, they said that Mike disproved the old adage, never meet your heroes, because he was brilliant to talk to. Now I can add to that meeting a pair of podcasting heroes was similarly brilliant. That's enough smoke blown for now, though. I'll just say that I'd like to think I'm their first guest in 133 shows to somehow mention Freddie Starr's Hitler. Make of that what you will. Otherwise, pull up your dream couch, hook arms with us, forgive us for being slow on the uptake, as we take a journey into the dreams of a holy child in The Fortress of the Pearl, Part 2. We're back in Derry Toms, and amazingly, Loz is back in Derry Toms. A whole, I don't know, let me count on my fingers. June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January. No, that's wrong. Is it 9? Can it be 9 months from May?
He did all that with one hand as well, which is quite astonishing.
Yeah, that's probably why I got it really badly wrong. Maybe it's 7 or 8 months. I don't know, but it's a while anyway. We've had a couple of false starts. I think the last of which was you came over and neither of us had done our homework, so we just got drunk and recorded Patreon Extra, which was beer matching to Eternal Champion characters, which was
that's tenuous at best.
It's tenuous at best, but you know what? We owe the patrons high quality content,
and sadly we couldn't provide it. So that was the second best.
Although thinking about that seems a lot longer ago. Maybe that was the first abortive attempt to do part 1 of the Fortress of the Pearl,
and that's no kind of. It's nothing to do with the quality of the book.
Let's judge that as we go. We just need to outline some rules. But first of all, Happy New Year. This is the first actual... Well, it's not the first released podcast of the year. It's the first recorded podcast of 2023. What have you been reading?
Not a lot, to be honest. I've been attempting, as I said before, trying to read the Cormac McCarthy book, but my eyesight has failed me miserably. So I've moved swiftly onto audiobooks. Mm-hmm. So I've been listening to the Elric audiobook, weirdly some Miss Marple short stories, and what else have I been listening to? And I finished the last Bond book as well, which was by somebody or other. Some guy or other, that was all right. Yeah. I've been a bit random, so I've been listening to some of the Poirot short stories as well. Because basically when I'm reading at the moment is when I'm in bed, and generally read one page and then pass out, or put my audiobook on and listen to one chapter and pass out, and then it takes me about 10 years to go through any of it.
Yeah, it would be really nice to just have the time to read rather than trying to fit it in between other scraps of life.
No, I tell a lie, actually. The last 2 books that I've finished, I read Bullet Train, which was ace, and seen the film after it, which is all right, not so much. And then I read the prequel to Bullet Train called Three Assassins, which was really good as well. So both of those are really, really cool.
All right.
And Page Turners, I read both of them on holiday, and it was one of those things where that's the only time I've had time to read, really. Sat looking at the sea, reading a book is ace, isn't it?
Yeah, we've got a holiday coming up in a few weeks, which we're hoping to spend by the sea somewhere, so I'm very much looking forward to reading something. But you said you've been listening to an Elric audiobook. Is that Citadel of Forgotten Myths?
Yeah, I've got both. Well, basically, I've got all of the Elric ones start to finish on audio, and I've listened to Fortress of the Pearl. just in case I was being lazy and didn't read it, but I have read it. But yes, I've also started the Citadel of Forgotten Myths.
Is that the audiobook where Moongloom is from Yorkshire?
Yeah, so basically one of the main problems I've had with a lot of the Elric audiobooks is the regional accents for various people. So Una is Irish, which you can kind of understand a bit. Moongloom being from Yorkshire, that is a bit more problematic, I think.
Well, considering we do all of our readings in Yorkshire, I think that I really shouldn't have a problem with that, but I don't know, instinctively I do. Some drunk pissheads crapping on a podcast in Yorkshire accents is one thing.
Yeah, when you're paying marginally good money for it. But it's that thing of like, hey up, Elric. It just takes me out of it a bit.
Yeah.
The Elric voice is kind of almost it's nothing. It's just a,
neutral.
Yeah, neutral voice, which is all right. But as soon as the accents come in, you're a bit like,
Right. Well, if we do any readings on this episode, we'll have to see how we go. Maybe I'll do Una as Bernard Manning to try and balance it a little bit.
It could work.
We'll see. So, before we crack on, we need to talk about our beer rules. And I thought because there's 5 chapters, then we can fit in definitely at least 5 beers as we go along. Yeah. So we have a slate. Now, what I've done is, I did originally have a slate of 8 for our wandering beer table, the triumphant return of the wandering beer table, although we probably shouldn't be using D&D tropes in the podcast anymore.
We'll probably owe money, won't we?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I tell you what, let's just test it, shall we? See if they come kicking our door down. By the way, this podcast doesn't use the OGL because we don't really know what it means.
No, I have no idea.
No. So, we'll go along the line. At number 1, we have Hallo, ich bin Raspberry Berliner. A gentle 3.7%.
Yeah,
to kick us off.
It's sensible, fine,
isn't it? What do we have at number 2, Loz?
Yeah, we have the one I'm massively looking forward to, the Turkish Baklava Pale. Clocking in.
That's 5.5, I think.
Yeah, it's 5.5. Yeah.
So, next in line, we have one of Vocation's special editions. This is ripping off the Maltesers label, Naughty and Nice Malted Honeycomb Chocolate Stout at 6%.
Which might be quite nice.
Next up, again, I think this one's for you, Loz.
Absolutely tragic, this one. I'm sure it's the Northern Monk one again. It's the Turkish Delight Sour, the drink nobody has ever asked for.
No.
Ever. And that's 6.2, I believe.
Yeah. Chaos champions all over demand that we roll for.
Yeah, so that's going to be the challenge, I think.
Well, you say that, but hang on. Another Vocation Special Edition Naughty and Nice Whipped Nugget Chocolate Stout at 7%. This one, the label, ripping off the Milky Way logo.
Oh, it's definitely not the Milky Way, is it?
Yes. And at number 6...
we have the Vocation Naughty and Nice Caramel Cookie Chocolate Stout.
That's the Snickers rip-off.
Twix.
Sorry.
Twix. And that is a cosy 8.
8%.
A mere 8%.
Mere 8%.
Yeah.
And of course, the Snickers is next.
Yeah.
And this is the Vocation Special Edition. Roasted Peanut Caramel Chocolate Imperial Stout at 9%. So does it have to be over a certain strength before it's legally allowed to be called Imperial?
I don't know, or is it the type of hops?
I have no idea. I think Imperial just usually indicates wanker beer, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, is that...
We are big enough wankers to drink...
And when they say Imperial, which empire are we talking about?
Yeah, good point. And finally, on the list...
the Pièce de Résistance, Vocation Special Edition once more, the Naughty and Nice Coconut Milk Chocolate Imperial Stout. Definitely not a bounty.
No.
A mere 10%.
Yeah.
Which, it's goes with many a dessert I would warrant.
Yeah.
Just not in my house.
Probably comes out tasting exactly the same as it goes in.
Yeah.
But I think what we should probably do, because we need to actually get through this, is we'll separate off the 9 and 10%ers.
Yeah.
And we'll roll a d6 on the first 6 on the slate. And that will be our slate for chapters 1 to 5. And then... later on, once we've finished recording, after we've had something to eat, we may well come back and drink the last 3 just for shits and giggles.
Yeah. I mean, it's your house, so, you're the one who'll be cleaning it sick, to be honest. So,
okay, well, Phil could probably
Phil
help. I'm sure. Okay, you can roll the dice, sir.
Excellent. Right. High hopes on this one. 4.
It's 4.
Snake Eyes.
Lords of Chaos rule.
Mate.
It is the Turkish Delight Sour. There we go.
Oh, we've got 1 each.
And we've got 1 each.
Oh, we're not sharing it.
No, we're not sharing. We're going for it.
That is tragic.
And because I've got to get these out my fucking kitchen somehow.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. We've already warmed up with a McEwen's Export.
We have. We went old school.
And a Loch Lomond Black IPA.
Which was very nice.
Which was very nice. Not bad for £1.40 or something from Lidl.
From all other supermarkets are available.
Yeah. But now we're going to find out if
mate.
£4.50 for a can of beer actually results in value for money.
The thing for me about Turkish Delight and sours, so I hate Turkish Delight and sours. So I'm looking forward to this one.
Whereas I like Turkish Delight and I like sours.
Do you like your Turkish Delight, the old school Turkish Delight, your Cadbury's?
I like
talking
all
proper,
Turkish Delight.
The gamut of Turkish
I like
Delight.
it all. I like the stuff made with beetroot. I like the stuff with...
Beetroot?
Beetroot sugar. Turkish Delight.
Beetroot sugar?
Beetroot sugar Turkish Delight is a thing.
Is it?
Covered in dried rose petals.
Oh, is it though?
Oh,
is it really?
It really is. I like the stuff with pistachios in.
It always looks amazing.
Yeah.
So when you go past a stall of it, it's like, I bet that's ace. And then you just eating perfume. Crap perfume.
Let's go. Let's do it. Cheers. Well, how peculiar.
It's not hideous, is it?
No, it's all right, that. I like that. In fact, I can see us drinking that really quickly, so we'd better start talking about Moorcock, hadn't we?
Are we going to drink it that quickly? It's very optimistic.
I don't know. I can see that going down quite nicely.
Yeah, so it's been a while since we ploughed through book 1.
Yeah, we need to recap that, really, don't we?
I mean, we left Alnet Crab, didn't we, in a not a good place.
No, we need to mourn Alnet Crab.
Being dead.
Yeah.
And that. I reckon, I was thinking about this earlier, is he the worst Companions champions ever?
Well,
we can pause that because later on there is a strong challenger.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of somebody worse.
I liked Alnet Crab, and I liked the cut of his jib, and I was quite disappointed when he went out so badly.
That's what I meant. I meant not necessarily his personality, more of his character arc of, right, Elric, brilliant.
There is a lot of that in book 2, though, isn't there?
Yeah, there
a lot
is.
of that in part 2. A lot of people introduced who you think, this seems quite... Oh, he's dead.
It was almost a bit like, when it was written, was he just like, got a bit distracted, writing something else, maybe a Pie book or something, and then went back and, oh shit.
Well, I've got thoughts on how this book might have originated, but I'll leave it for the time being.
Right.
Yeah. So to recap, part 1, Elric is lost in the desert.
He is.
He's near Quasashat. A young lad called Anai picks him up and thinks, oi, this guy's got some interesting looking gear, maybe I can flog it. To cut a long story short, Elric is...
He's in a bad way, isn't he?
He's in a bad way, and Lord Go of
Quasashat,
who's a bit of a prick, who's got fat fingers.
There's a brilliant description of him later on, which we should go to.
He's got fat fingers. We don't like him. I don't think fat fingers is necessarily an indicator of poor character.
I don't think that's the worst trait, is it? Really?
No, there are other things.
It's probably quite bad on the old telephones. The really old school ones.
Yeah.
They just won't be able to do it. Really.
I expect so.
Yeah.
And to be honest, modern telephones, I think he'd be hitting 3 or 4 keys at once.
Yeah, exactly.
But he ends up enlisting Elric to undertake a task, but actually kind of backs Elric into a corner by giving him something to deal with Elric's weakness. Because Elric has run out of his life-sustaining herbs. So Lord Go gives him his elixir, which is super, super addictive. So basically, Elric is now on Quasashat smack.
Yeah. I mean, the other side of it, he to be fair to Elric, because it's nice Elric, I think, we'll come to that later as well, I think he could have just killed everybody and used Stormbringer. He decided not to, didn't he? He made that decision of like, no, I'm just going to die here in a ditch.
Well, we've still got... Because this is the second chronologically, Elric is still idealistic Elric, isn't he? Who doesn't want to murder the world. He wants to be out there on his gap year, having experiences and finding out how the rest of the Young Kingdoms live.
Yeah, change the world, doesn't he? He wants the Empire to be one of good.
Yeah, fair play. So he sets off and he keeps getting accosted by sorcerer adventurers of different elements of this quasi-shark council, who were all a bit fucking stupid, to be honest. But
was it the 6 and 1? I can't.
Yeah, it was kind of entertaining. He kept on getting accosted by these blokes in different coloured costumes, butchering
with
most of them. Tattooed eyes. Yeah. But he carries on, and then what's the quest? The quest is to get to the bronze tent because a girl is unconscious. And Lord Go wants him to find the Fortress of the Pearl, and his avenue to get to the Fortress of the Pearl
is via
Hair and the Bronze Tent.
Yeah, so the Bronze Tent is it the burnished moon, or there's a moon involved, blood moon, possibly. Yeah,
and that's just a device. It's like, I've got to get there, blood moon. There's a lot of that going on.
Yeah,
a lot of things which are thrown in, which are basically 2 to 3 page lifespan MacGuffins in order to basically get to the next point in the quest.
The next MacGuffin.
Yeah, a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
But he hooks up with Alnak Kreb, a dream thief, who's a top fella, dresses nicely.
Bit less patronising than Una.
Bit less patronising. And he takes it upon himself to help the girl by going into her dreams.
Yeah.
And her father thinks, this is the dream thief I sent for.
Yeah.
Alnak Kreb comes a cropper, shrivels up like an old prune.
Loses his essence.
And we find out where his essence has gone.
Yeah.
A little bit later on. And then Una the dream thief, getting ahead of myself.
Yeah,
Una the dream thief turns up and says, "Oh no, I was the one you was waiting for. No, Alnak."
Yeah. He's rubbish. Yeah. Basically, the thing that they're trying to find is the pearl.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the pearl at the heart of the world? Or
yes.
Did I make that up? Go wants the pearl to basically get a seat on this council, doesn't he? So he's like a bit of a rubbish politician.
It's all power moves.
Yeah.
It's all power moves.
And he thinks Elric's a bit of a sorcerer, so he sends him.
Yeah.
And that's the quest, isn't it?
Yeah, that is the quest. So Alnak Kreb is dead.
He is.
Una's turned up.
Yeah.
So here we are. I think we probably just need to discuss Una briefly, because of course it's actually Una's first appearance on the podcast, because we haven't got to Cure for Cancer yet, and Una Person isn't in the final programme.
Nor have we done the White Wolf's Son.
No, that's right
as well.
And Una in this case isn't spelt UNA, it's spelt OONE.
NA.
NE, yeah, OONE. Una.
No, it's with an A.
Is it? Well, here we go. This is our first difference. Because I'm reading from the revised text from 2013, which is in the Golanx paperback.
No, I think you are right.
Oh, how disappointing. I thought we'd actually come across something interesting there. Una.
No, you are right. Yeah.
OONE.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry.
Yeah. So it's her first appearance on the podcast, and there's another character coming up. It'll be the same case, but a really, really important Michael Moorcock character. And actually, Una is a huge character in Moorcock's ongoing oeuvre from this point onwards. This is written in 1989. Just about everything he writes, multiverse related from that point onwards, features Una or the Dream Thief.
Wasn't Una in final programme? I thought Una Person was in the final programme.
Yeah, she didn't appear in the final programme at all.
It is the second book.
Yeah, it's Cure for Cancer onwards. She becomes one of that rotating cast.
Yeah.
And she features in some form or other in the Von Beck books. She pops up.
Yeah.
She's in the White Wolf's Son books, the Moonbeam Roads trilogy.
I think she's also in the Blood ones as well.
The Blood trilogy. Yeah. So actually, this is the first appearance of a really, really critical and important character who features in Von Beck. And all of this stuff starts to cross over. And if we roll Una into Una Person from the second, third and fourth Jerry Cornelius novels, and of course The Adventures of Una Person and Catherine Cornelius in the 20th century.
Which I've never read.
Yeah, you will maybe do that at some point. She is one of the most prolific Michael Moorcock characters around.
Yeah, probably.
Which is interesting. So you've just mentioned the audio version has her as Irish.
Yes.
And I'm not sure I read it like that, but, audio interpretations, they're never quite.
Well, I think they have to have that differentiation between the characters, don't they? Sometimes it's quite hard if you've got 4 or 5 people talking one after the other.
Yeah. This is a funny chapter for me, because when I was preparing, I read it again, and I had to read it a day later as I forgot most of it, because it comes across in one way as a bit dull because it's several pages of Una explaining dream thievery.
Yeah, that's what I had as well. It's kind of, she's the Basil exposition of dream thievery, isn't it?
It's like, it's a chapter spent to establish some new rules.
Yeah.
For the saga. And I don't know if it might even come across as a little bit clunky and dry just because there is so much exposition in it. And Moorcock's never normally dry. It's nicely written, but it is just so much exposition.
It's a massive amount of like paragraphs which are just... And it's another... And Elric's a bit of a simpleton with it as well, isn't he? He's like, what?
Yes, yeah.
And he keeps asking various questions, and she's going, I want you on this quest because, you've got a sorceress background. So she's looked at his CV and gone, he'll do.
Sorceress background, massive weed.
Yeah. Massive sword.
Yeah, totally emo. Yeah. Can't do anything without murdering people.
Dressed like a bear.
Yeah. Yeah, but that said, I think it does serve a purpose because as it goes along, I started to warm up to this part too. There's lots and lots of good stuff in it.
I think the quest that... So basically, when I was rereading it, it reminded me of Inception. So basically, they're going into someone's dream. Yeah, they're going into somebody's consciousness, steal a dream, aren't they? Which is Inception, pretty much, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then when she was going through all of the different levels in the dream world, I was like, right, okay, that really reminds me of Dante's Inferno.
Yeah.
And then I was trying to think of like the Carl Jung kind of archetypes as well. So I was kind of reading around that again.
Yeah.
And some of it is very much the same as Dante's Inferno, isn't it? Like,
I'm going to read some of that. But let's just have a look at the start of this chapter. And it says, Una removed a date stone from her mouth and dropped it into the sand of the Silverflower Oasis. She reached her hand towards one of the brilliant cactus flowers which gave the place its name. She stroked the petals with long, delicate fingers. She sang to herself, and it seemed to Elric that her words were a lament. Respectfully, he remained silent, sitting with his back to a palm tree, looking to the distant camp and its continuing activity. She had asked him to accompany her, but had said little to him. He heard a calling from the Casbah high above, but when he peered in that direction, he saw nothing. The breeze blew over the desert, and red dust raced like water towards the ragged pillars on the horizon. It was almost noon. They had returned to the Silverflower Oasis that morning, and the few remains of Alnak Kreb were to be burned with honour, according to the customs of the Baradim that night. Una's staff was no longer slung on her back. Now she held the dream wand in both hands, turning it over and over, watching the light on its burnish and polish, as if she had only now seen it for the first time. The other wand, Alnak's, she had tucked into her belt. "It would have made my task a little easier," she said suddenly. "If Alnak had not acted so..." I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
If Alnak had not acted so precipitously. He did not realise I was coming and was doing his best to save the child, I know. But a few more hours and I could have used his help. Perhaps successfully. Certainly, I might have saved him. So they have a lot of conversations about what went on, and she summarises that he lost all essence. Instead of stealing a dream, he was robbed of his own. She paused and spoke quickly, as if she feared she would regret her words. "Will you help me, Prince Elric?" And yes, so she thinks... But the reason she's asking, apart from the fact that he's protagonist of the story, she's asking Elric for his help because, I don't know, is it because he has some kind of sorceress background? We found out later on it's just because he can use a sword and help her fight her way through.
She says because of his background in dealing with different realities, isn't it? And kind of the sorcery of the Young Kingdoms is trying to put your will on chaos, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's a bit tenuous.
Yeah.
It's a bit like, well, you'll do. I was going to ask the other guy, but he's dead now. Yeah,
and I think there is a chapter coming up where things get a little bit sticky, and his ability to butcher people with a sword, even when he hasn't got Stormbringer, turns out to be quite handy.
Yeah.
So she explains all sorts of other things as well. She explains the Dream Thief's code.
Yes.
A dream thief does exactly what the title implies. We steal dreams. Originally our guilds were true thieves. We learned the trick of entering the worlds of other people's dreams and stealing those which were most magnificent or exotic. Gradually, however, people began to call upon us to steal unwanted dreams, or rather the dreams which entrapped or plagued friends or relatives. So we stole those. Frequently the dreams themselves were in no way harmful to another, only to the one who was in their power. Elric interrupted. Are you saying that a dream has some material reality, that it can be seized like a volume of verse, say, or a money purse, and slipped free of its owner? Essentially, yes. Or, I should say, our guild learned the trick of making a dream sufficiently real for it to be handled thus. She now laughed openly at his confusion, and some of the care went away from her for a moment. There is a certain talent needed, and a great deal of training. And Elric says, but what do you do with these stolen dreams? Why, Prince Elric, we sell them at the dream market twice a year. Yeah, of course.
It's all about capitalism.
That's right. There's a fine trade in almost any sort of dream, no matter how bizarre or terrifying. There are merchants who purchase them, and customers who would buy them. We distill them, of course, into a form which can be transported and later translated, and because we make the dreams take substance, we are threatened by them. That substance can destroy us. You see what happened to Alnak. It takes a certain character, a certain cast of mind, a certain attitude of spirit, all combining, to protect oneself in the dream realm. The dream realms? The dream realms.
The realms.
But because we have codified these realms, we have also, to a degree, made them our own to manipulate. And it just goes, there's loads of this.
Yeah. And you do think the poor buggers are had to translate that into role-playing rules. It's been there for ages going,
Yeah, what I should have actually done, and maybe I'll do this as a little follow-up, I think the Mongoose Elric of Melniboné rules for RuneQuest 2 do have an extensive section on Dream Thieves.
Yeah, they did, I think. Yeah.
And I think Stormbringer 5th edition might as well, but I can't remember.
I think it might have thrown that in as well, I think.
Yeah, we'll have to take a look at those.
Which would never work, would it? Because if you want to use a Dream Thief, the rest of them would be like, I'll just sit here then while you're thieving around.
Yeah, I think you would have to have a campaign or certainly a few games specifically focused upon dream thieving. Because if you've got a dream thief in the party, what they're going to do, occasionally do a dreamscape type thing. Yeah. But even then, what do they do? An adventure? I think you would have to have a game completely composed.
Yeah.
Have a setup around dream thievery. But you mentioned earlier on about the layers.
Yeah, the realms of the dream world.
Yeah. So they're having a philosophical discussion about the malleability of creation, about law and chaos. And Elric says, I'm sufficiently curious now, madam. You spoke of your laws. What are they? And she says, some are instructive, some are descriptive. First, I'll tell you that we have determined every dream realm shall have 7 aspects which we have named. By naming and describing, we hope to shape that which has no shape and control that which few can begin to control. By such impositions, we have learned to survive in worlds where others would be destroyed within minutes. Yet even when we perform such impositions, even that which our own wills define can become transmuted beyond our control. If you would accompany me and aid me in this adventure, you must know that I have determined we shall pass through 7 lands. The first land we shall call Sadanor, the land of dreams in common.
I wrote them down.
The second land is Marador, which we'll call the land of old desires. The third is Paranor, the land of lost beliefs. The fourth land is known to dream thieves as Kelador, which is the land of forgotten love. The fifth is Imador, the land of new ambition. And the sixth is Falador, the land of madness.
Been there a couple of times.
Yeah, usually on mushrooms.
Yeah, and then you've got
bad times.
We've got all of those, then we've got another one which we do not name. The unknown one. Why don't we name it?
This goes on for fucking yonks.
It really does go on for pages and pages.
And I think in the amount of time it takes just to explain all this, it's about half the length of the Dreaming City.
yeah, pretty much. And then even when they get to... So they do the dream thievery bit. So they go into her in the girl's dream. And even then there's realms before that.
We'll get to all that, good God. But do you get the sense that this might have originally originated as not an Elric novel?
Oh, totally. That's what I was thinking when I was reading it. I was like, he's obviously had this idea about dreams and the dream world and how interesting that would be, and probably Unu was the main character in it. And they went, right, how am I going to sell this? I'll lob Elric into it. Because in book 2, he's pretty useless, isn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, in book 1, he's pretty useless.
Yeah.
He gets tricked by a fat-fingered weirdo, doesn't he? And goes, oh, poisoned, my lord. And then book 2, he's pretty much a spare wheel.
He is entirely a passenger
Yeah.
for much of this.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. You've got to have a POV character, obviously. Yeah. But I don't know, it just feels like this might have originated as something else, and then you kit-bashed it into being an Elric novel by bunging a framing device of quasi-charts at either end.
Yeah, I think that. I totally think that. I think even... Because, on mine it's got the first new Elric novel for over a decade, which is a big selling point, isn't it? That's why we bought it. If it was like the first Una Dream Thief book, you'd be like, I'd still read it, but you probably wouldn't have been as excited, really.
Yeah, and we should, or I certainly should point out, I don't want to come across as being overly negative on this, but I think it's all just interesting points to discuss. But I enjoyed this a lot more reading it now than I did when I read it in 1989.
Yeah,
I struggled with it in 1989.
This is the third time I've read it. And I do think you're probably right, the POV character should have been Una, really. Yeah. And it's same with Revenge of the Rose, because the main character in Revenge of the Rose is obviously Rose, and Rose von Beck. And the way he writes her... she's the POV character.
Yeah.
I think. And I think it's a similar thing with this. It's, the character he cares most about is probably Una.
It's peculiar because Moorcock always wanted to be seen as a feminist author, in inverted commas. Despite the problems with the original ending of Gloriana, which he rewrote after criticism, I think, from Andrea Dworkin. Which, fair enough, really? He put his hand up and said, you know what, you've got a point there. And so unless you've got, I think, the first edition or one of the first couple of editions of Gloriana, you've got the original ending. And we'll cover that at some point when we talk about Gloriana.
I've never read it.
Yeah, and he describes himself, the adventures of Una Persson and Catherine Cornelius in the 20th century, as his failed attempt to write a feminist novel.
Right.
Sure, I read that at one point, although I'm going back a long time. And what you have with Fortress of the Pearl and Revenge of the Rose, in many ways you have two books where what you could have had was all new lead starring protagonists.
Female eternal champion.
Female eternal champions, or certainly, by any measure, really interesting female characters with a drive, with a purpose, who would pass the Bechdel test and everything else. And Elric could have been a character who passed through those books.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't have sold.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, and it's a shame. I think there's a really cracking Una Persson starring vehicle book here that was kit-bashed into an Elric novel.
Yeah, so I agree. It was weird when I was reading it, and I was thinking exactly the same thing. There's a lot more care and almost love put into that character.
Yeah.
The Elric, because he's obviously nice Elric, as we call him, he does come across as a bit of a buffoon, doesn't he?
He does, but
a nice...
I would also say that there are a few short passages in it that really do add a little bit of dimension to Elric beyond him just being a whingy emo doofus. That are better in this book than most of the others.
Yeah, totally.
There's ones where he's engaged in like sort of a level of melancholia for certain reasons, or he's thinking about his father or thinking about Cimmeril, beyond just, oh, Cimmeril, my love.
Yeah.
That I think are really effective passages.
Yeah, totally. But the whole thing about him joining this quest, it's not really for revenge. He's doing it because he keeps talking about the girl who he's never met, but, as a symbol.
The holy girl of the Barrow.
You've got, the young lad back home.
Yeah.
And then you talk about Cimmeril. So he's doing it to try and save those people, as opposed to when he's chasing Thaleb Kana through the Young Kingdoms because he's really annoyed with him.
Yeah.
Which is, a bit less rounded. He comes across as a nicer fella, and he there's a couple of bits in book 2, isn't there, where although he's mistaken, he's like, this is the life I could have.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting juxtaposition of the fact that you get a better fleshed out version of Elric where his general outlook on life and motivations are explored a little bit, but he has no agency as he's passing through the story.
Yeah. Imagine how much better it would be if she was the POV character and she was looking at Elric and kind of giving her perception of him. That'd be much
well, one of the most entertaining parts of the entire multiverse canon is Elric viewed through Hawkmoon's POV.
Yeah.
It's hugely entertaining. And obviously I think that was old school Moorcock in the 70s still writing things at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Unlike this, which I think is a lot more considered, despite
definitely,
what we've just said. I think actually having a different point of view on Elric would be really, really interesting. Yeah, and it's maybe a missed opportunity in that respect, but let's see how we go anyway.
So we've got Dante's Inferno's related dream section.
Yep.
I think the bit where the part of when he goes into the dream is really well written.
Yeah.
I thought that was really, really nice.
Yes, they hook arms with the young girl either side of him, cradle the hooked dream staffs over their elbows, and it says Elric felt some trepidation as he obeyed her, but he knew no fear for himself, only the child and her people, for Cimmeril waited for him in Melniboné, for the boy who prayed in Quasarshart that he would return with the jewel his jailer had demanded. Immediately, Elric felt a power possess him, and for a moment it was as if his body grew lighter and lighter until it threatened to drift away on the slightest breeze. His vision faded, yet dimly he could still see Una. She seemed to be concentrated. He looked into the face of the holy girl, and for a second thought he saw her skin turn still whiter. Her eyes glow as crimson as his own, and a strange thought came and went in his mind. If I had a daughter, she would look thus.
Yeah, I thought it was really... I wrote that down. I was like, that's him thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, bit of pining.
Yeah.
Then it was as if his bones were melting, his flesh dissolving, his whole mind and spirit dissipating. He gave himself up to this sensation, as he had determined he must, since he now served Una's purpose. And now the flesh became flowing water. The veins and blood were coloured strands of air. His skeleton flowed like molten silver, mingling with the Holy Child, becoming hers, then flowing on beyond her, into caverns and tunnels and dark places. Into places where whole worlds existed in hollowed rock, where voices called to him and knew him, and sought to comfort him, or frighten him, or tell him truths he did not wish to learn. Then the air grew bright again, and he felt Una beside him, guiding him, her hand on his, her body almost his body, her voice confident and even cheerful, like one who moves toward familiar danger. Danger which she had overcome many times. Yet there was an edge to her voice, which made him believe she had never faced a danger as great as this one, and that there was every chance neither of them would return to the bronze tent or the silver flower oasis. And there was music, which he understood was the very soul of this child turned into sound. Sweet, sad, lonely music. Music so beautiful he would have wept had he anything more than the airiest substance. Then he saw blue sky before him, a red desert stretching away towards red mountains on the horizon, and he had the strangest of sensations, as if he were coming home to a land he had somehow lost in his childhood, and then forgotten. So they're into the dream realms.
So that's ace, I think.
Great, isn't it?
Really, really good.
And it still has that sense of melancholy where he's yearning for his childhood, and that's referenced quite a few times.
Yeah.
It's really good.
No, when I was reading that, I was thinking, that's really good quality. It's a shame that you have to go through like 4 pages of dream thievery exposition.
Yeah, and there is a lot of that. When I was reading it, I was thinking, this really reads like you're reading a Dream Thief supplement for the Elric role-playing game, and it's establishing all of the rules for you.
Yeah.
It feels like setup. But I do think the setup is good.
It's interesting. I think, it's a new thing, isn't it? But Elric does come across as, he's just there, and she's just going, and this.
Yeah.
Elric, come on.
Yeah.
It'll be great.
Yeah. As this goes along, this feels more like a Coram book than an Elric book.
I had that exact thing, yeah. Especially chapter 5.
Yeah, because we go into travelogue quest mode, where things are thrown in. It's like remembering when we were reading The Knight of the Swords, where it's like, oh, look, here's a galloping bunch of orange dudes on 6-legged horses with barbed lances. Yeah. Big fight. Oh, they're all dead.
Yeah, shouting, whoa!
Yeah. Oh, they're all dead, move on.
Oh, this one's got one massive eye and one small eye.
Yeah, and there's a whole lot of that going on here. There was quite a bit of that in Mad God's Amulet as well, but all of that seemed to connect a little bit more back to the Mad God.
I really like it.
So you've got that core of it. Yeah, I love the Mad God's Amulet. It was brilliant.
Throbbing Bridge.
Yeah,
amazing.
Throbbing Bridge, fantastic. Yeah. We need more Throbbing Bridges in our lives.
We do.
But in terms of this, I think at the time, Moorcock writes this in 1989, 3 years after he wrote City in the Autumn Stars. And this reminds me of City in the Autumn Stars quite a lot.
Yeah.
But for reasons I can't really put my finger on because I hadn't read it for 30 years.
Right,
but I remember reading City in the Autumn Stars and thinking, this is just, he's going through the Middlemarch.
Yeah.
And there's stuff thrown in for fun that occurs and it's gone in 2 pages and there's something else and something else.
There's also Warhound as well, going through hell and all that. So there's a lot of similarity.
Yeah.
And then Dragon in the Sword.
Dragon in the Sword, I think, was written in 87. So City in the Autumn Stars is 86. Dragon in the Sword is 87 or 88. Warhound of the World's Pen was like 81.
Yeah.
And he got Dragon in the Sword. So over the space of 4 or 5 years, he writes City in the Autumn Stars, he writes Dragon in the Sword, he writes this, then a couple of years later he writes Revenge of the Rose.
Revenge of the Rose, I think, is just the best.
They're amazing. And I think Revenge of the Rose is probably the culmination of him writing this style of story.
Yeah.
Where he's constantly moving through different worlds and different scenarios and different setups. But Revenge of the Rose feels like a strange combination of all the best bits of City in the Autumn Stars, Dragon in the Sword, because there are similarities between Dragon in the Sword and Revenge of the Rose. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like a prequel to that, isn't it?
Yeah. So those 4 books, in a way, feel of a whole. This feels more of a whole with those books than it does with the rest of the Elric saga. And I know Revenge of the Rose is part of the Elric saga.
Yeah.
You know, so if you were going to put this in a slipcase with 3 other books,
yeah, you're probably right.
I'd put it with City in the Autumn Stars, Dragon in the Sword, and Revenge of the Rose.
Yeah.
You know?
Dragon in the Sword, I still like.
There's
lots of really good bits to it.
Yeah, it's great.
And that's when that was when he brought the modern Von Beck in there as well.
Yeah,
that's when the Von Becks.
That's right. And is that the one where Nazi German is in it as well? That's the first time they draw that into it.
Yeah, Hitler's in it.
Yeah. It's
and
all
the
good
Holy
stuff.
Grail.
Yes.
So that's when he connects the Eternal Champion stories with the Von Becks, isn't it?
Yeah.
Dragon in the Sword.
And every time I read the text in this and it said Holy Grail, I read it as Holy Grail.
Yeah. It's another MacGuffin, isn't it?
It's another MacGuffin, but the girl really is. She's the same kind of MacGuffin as the Holy Grail.
And also the Runestaff kid.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, well, we're on to chapter 2. Sir Lawrence of Burfield.
Oh, God. Let me drink this one.
I think we can either roll a d6 and ignore it if it's a 4, or we can slide.
I'm merely a guest at Jerry and Tom's.
Well, it's my turn to roll anyway.
Quite strict bar
if it's
rules.
A 4, we'll make a decision. It's a 4. I'll re-roll.
It's a 5.
It's a 5. So, there you go, sir.
What are we going for?
We have got
the
Naughty and Nice Whipped Nugget Chocolate Stout.
Definitely
at
not.
A gentle 7%.
Definitely not a Milky Way.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
Yeah.
I say gentlemen. Laws, start your engine. Yeah. Oh, it's dark. It's thick. Potentially syrupy.
Dark and thick. Like.
Not a lot of head on it.
Yeah, but you're pouring it properly.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, you've got an enormous head.
Yeah.
But that's because, my lord, you have a woman's glass.
Exactly.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So after a Turkish delight sour, how's this going to go?
I'm not getting a Milky Way.
No, it's very sweet.
Yeah.
Possibly too sweet. But I guess if I've bought 5 outrageous stouts based upon chocolate bars, complaining about that is a fool's errand.
It's almost we need like a bowl of either pickled onions or jalapenos to eat between the beers.
I think you're probably right.
Just that it'll just take away some of the edge of the sweetness, I think.
Yeah, I do have a jar of pickled onions over there. I should have put them in a bowl, shouldn't I? Although, is it great podcasting to just listen to someone going crunch, crunch, crunch?
There's a market for it, not necessarily our market.
I wonder if the Waves Restoration plugin will eradicate all sounds of pickled onion crunching. Anyway, well.
We'll come to that.
We'll come to that if we end up doing it. But yeah actually,
it's all right.
Better than I expected.
It's nice. Yeah. It's one of those things where you wouldn't drink a lot of it.
No, and I think previously we have been dragged down the unpleasant porter alleyway quite a lot. I don't think we've actually done that many stouts.
We've been dragged by our hair down the porter alleyway.
We have, and I think in book 1 of Fortress of the Pearl, we had that smoked Russian Imperial Stout, which was quite possibly one of the worst beers.
It's probably one of the worst experiences of my life, to be honest. It was beyond beer, that, wasn't it? It was why, Lord? Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yes, they're in the dream world, and of course, he's had to leave Stormbringer behind. Can't take Stormbringer into the dream world.
I made that very point as well. So, yeah, this is the first adventure of some... Well, it's probably the first adventure without Stormbringer, isn't it?
Other than the first part of Elric and Elric, yeah.
And they lobbed into the sea.
Yeah, it was, yeah. Did he have Earl Aubeck's?
He did,
Aubeck of Malador's sword. Yeah. I think Stormbringer, first to say, was a bit miffed by this.
He was a bit cross, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. He grumbled. Yeah. So, chapter 2, In the Marches at the Heart's Edge.
This was, I think we both read the same thing, where it's Moorcock's writing tips when he's talking about juxtapose like two things together to create a location or something. Does that here, birthplace of the bone. Yeah. So they're talking about that. So this area could be the birthplace of mankind.
Ah, yeah.
But obviously Elric goes, well, sure, it's a myth.
So it starts, it says, as Elric felt his bones reform and the flesh resume its familiar weight and contour, he saw that the land they had entered seemed scarcely any different from that which they had left. Red desert stretched before them, red mountains lay beyond. So familiar was the landscape that Elric looked back, expecting to see the bronze tent. But immediately behind him now yawned a chasm, so vast, no further side could be seen. He knew sudden vertigo, and checked his balance, somewhat to Winner's amusement. The dream thief was dressed in her same functional velvets and silks, and seemed a little amused by his response. Aye, Prince Elric, now we are indeed at the very edge of the world. We have only certain choices here, and they do not include retreat. I had not considered it, madam. Looking more closely, he realised that the mountains were considerably taller, and were all leaning in the same direction, as if bent by a tremendous wind. They are like the teeth of some ancient predator, said Una, with a shudder of one who might actually have stared into such a maw at some time in their career. Doubtless the first stage of our journey takes us there. This is the land we dream thieves always call Sadanor, the land of dreams in common. Yeah, the land of dreams in common.
Sadanor.
Yeah. Yet you seem unfamiliar with the scenery. The scenery varies. We know only the nature of the land. It may change in its details, but where we travel is frequently dangerous, not because it's unfamiliar, but because of its familiarity. That is the second rule of the dream thief.
Mate. Tell me about it.
I thought we'd got over all that.
Imagine travelling with it. You're like, oh, mate, come on.
Yeah.
You've said that. We know.
But she asked Elric how he's feeling, and he admitted to his own surprise he had lost no energy. For perhaps the first time in his adult life he had the sense that he was physically as other people, able to sustain himself without calling on any form of artifice. It occurs to me, he said, that I might be well advised to make my home here. Ah, now you begin to fall into another of this realm's trap.
Oh, mate.
She said lightly
Rule
enough.
3.
First there is suspicion and maybe fear, then there is relaxation, a feeling that you've always belonged here, that this is your natural or your spiritual home. These are illusions common to the traveller. And yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, for me, it's like, really, let's just get on with it.
Yeah. I do kind of like that, though, because whilst she, Una is being really boring and going, ooh, hang on, mate, there is something really identifiable with Elric's feelings around this, because I've woken from dreams and, semi-consciously, you lament for a few seconds or a short while that you're no longer in the dream.
Yeah.
And it's like a sense of intoxication that's ripped away when you wake up. So Elric I think it's really identifiable that Elric's in this world and he feels good, and he doesn't feel like he does waking up and thinking, oh shit, where are my herbs? He feels normal, he feels warm. The stuff around him is weird, but he feels like a real person, something that he's never really felt like. And you can sense the intoxication in that. And that's some of the best stuff in this part of the book. Is Elric, when you're getting a sense that he's intoxicated with something in the dream realms that makes him feel a sense of loss for something that he's never had.
Well, he's albinism, or he's an albino. He's kind of, he doesn't feel like able-bodied, or that's the thing, isn't it? He's dealt with this all his life, and he's always been seen as a weakling. And so in a way, I get it. Yeah. And the fact that he doesn't need Stormbringer, which is the evil part of him, pretty much, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking, even though we don't get any Stormbringer in Part 2, which makes Elric a more interesting character, we will get the payoff for that in Part 3, won't we?
Oh, they'll get it.
Yeah. Which I remember reading it at the time thinking, that was the best part of the book.
Yeah,
but I don't know, I'm rereading it now thinking, maybe I'm reevaluating that because I like all this stuff, Elric being sensing and feeling.
Not a psycho murder hobo.
Yeah, absolutely not like, oh, my sword's killed my best mate again. Sheath it, walk on, go to the pub. Yeah.
Put on some new pantaloons. I'll be raped.
Well, on the subject of sartorial descriptions.
Honestly, seriously. I remember this bit. When I first read this bit, right, I was like, oh, that is terrible. And then when I've read it recently, I thought, it's worse than terrible. It's just, mate, why?
Well, you know what, I read it and I think, I wish that I could carry that off.
I'll go for this description.
Do it.
It does stick with me.
Do it.
Elric turned and, to his surprise, saw a small man whose sharp, merry features were shadowed by an enormous turban of yellow silk. This headdress, at least as wide as the man's shoulders, was decorated with a pin containing a great green gem, and from it sprouted several peacock feathers. Nice. He seemed to be wearing many layers of clothing, all brightly coloured of silk and linen, including an embroidered waistcoat and a long jacket of beautifully stitched blue patchwork, each shade subtly different from the one next to it. On his legs were baggy trousers of red silk, and on his feet sported curling slippers of green and yellow leather. The man was unarmed, but in his hand he had a startled black and white cat, upon whose back were folded a pair of silky black wings. And anybody who's ever read any Moorcock book immediately goes, yeah. If you've not read any Moorcock books before, you go, who the hell's this bloke?
You go, who the hell is that? But just in case you're a fucking idiot.
Oh, yes.
It says, greetings, sir. You would be the incarnation of the champion on this plane, I take it. I am... He frowned as if he had for a second forgotten his own name. I am something beginning with J. And something beginning with C.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Sorry, wrong one.
Yeah. It will return to me in a moment, or another name or event will occur, I'm sure. I am your what? Amanuensis, eh? He peered up at the sky.
I had to look that up.
Is this one of those sunless worlds? Are we to have no night at all? This is a strange line. Elric looked to Una, who did not seem wary of this apparition. I did not ask for a secretary, sir, he said to the small man, nor did I expect to be assigned one. My companion and I are on a quest in this world. I never for a second imagined that a Melnibonean would have a secretary, or even use the word in normal discourse.
And if they did have a secretary, did they have a uniform, which was like a massive turban, or like pantaloons and curly slippers? I was just like...
It's very odd.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, it's very odd. It says, I'm called Jaspar Collinadus, and my cat's name is Whiskers.
As always.
As always. This is Jarry's first, Jaspar. This is Jarry stroke Jaspar's first appearance on the podcast as well.
Jarrett Carnelian, etc., etc.
Yep, because we haven't got to... Was Jarry a Connell in The Knight of the Swords?
Nope, he's in the Queen of the Swords.
Right.
He arrives.
So we've not even got to Jarry in the Corums because we've only done The Knight of the Swords. So again, we have an interesting introduction to one of the more prolific companions who is like the Ericos of companions, isn't he?
Yeah, he remembers, half remembers mostly of the incarnations.
He has an awareness of other incarnations.
The bit I always had a problem with Jarry, so as a character, he has moments of kind of being quite interesting.
Yeah.
He's just quite literal, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's a bit like, my job, I'm companion to champions. It's like, that's not a thing, is it? That's not a job. It's like, you just, I don't know. It jarred with me a bit when I was first reading the Coram books. But anyway, this is possibly, for me, I don't get it at all.
I don't know. It's a standard Jarry appearance in many ways. He appears, he spouts vague reassurances. He's over-familiar with the champion, whoever that champion may be at the time. Yeah. And the champion scratches their head and thinks, who is this knobhead? Yeah. But then just thinks, well, actually, he's my best mate. Brilliant.
But that's the thing. When he's kind of... Even when Jasper's talking throughout the whole thing... Yeah, we're reading it as a reader going, God, this bloke's a knobhead. Yeah. I wish he'd just fuck off. And Elric's...
I'm not. I'm thinking I wish I could carry off get-up.
Apart from the get-up.
Yeah.
And Elric's going, I'm really warming to him. Although it makes no sense, what he's saying to me is really warming my heart.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it isn't. He's just talking nonsense.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, this particular chapter, for me, it doesn't enhance anything, I don't think.
No, and it's an odd combo. It's traditional Moorcock quest stroke travelogue, but the whimsy.
Yeah, the whimsy of the bit is what winds. I don't know if that's to try and set us up for the Dreamlands are whimsical, which is fine, but I mean, hell's teeth.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, Moorcock's think some of his influences are coming more to the fore in this. There's, the Mervyn Peake comparisons and... Yeah, but I don't know.
But the Mervyn Peake stuff it's quite dark and gothic, isn't it? I think this, for me... So I mean, what happened?
But Mervyn Peake, you would get these odd characters in the household staff.
Yeah, you would, yeah.
Who would be verbose and ridiculous.
But also quite well-rounded and have a point. I think, for me, this whole chapter, when he arrives, he starts talking nonsense.
Yeah.
Produces a map, which I'm not having. So so he goes, hang on a minute. Pulls a map out of his voluminous kind of sleeves. And he just happens to have a map of this particular realm, which is a bit unlikely.
Jarry always turns up and acts as some kind of Deus Ex Machina in some kind of situations, doesn't he? But rarely has he acted as such an obvious key to unlock the way as they encounter some obstacles, as he does in this chapter.
Oh, yeah, but it's so obvious.
He rocks up, there's a couple of obstacles, they're overcome because of his presence. In this case, it's Whiskers.
Yeah.
Whiskers, just for whatever reason in this, has superpowers.
It's super Whiskers.
Yeah, so he just ponces about in his awesome clobber. Whiskers does the work.
Yeah. And
I did like the bit with him admonishing the bird monster.
Oh, I hated that.
Jack Three-Beaks, or whatever his fucking name is.
Jack Three-Beaks. So, I mean, basically, for anybody who's not read it, what happens is they're going through... I've got Malador in my head, and it's not, obviously. It's Sanador. Sanador, the dream of whatever's. So the ploughing through there, and then a massive crow. Yeah. Is it a raven?
Three-headed bird.
A three-headed bird appears and starts attacking Una. And it's quite, for me, it wasn't brilliantly kind of described, so you just suddenly go, massive bird.
Yeah.
There's Una.
Yeah.
I don't know where Elric is. He's probably just stood on I don't know what he's doing, to be honest. So he goes, oh shit, a massive bird.
Yeah.
Then we have Jarry.
Yeah.
Jasper. Saying, it was then that Jasper Collinidus, that's probably a bad pronunciation, but I'm going with it, cried from behind Elric, Jack Three-Beaks, thou naughty bird. And that's when I put the book down and went to eat a Cornish pasty.
Yeah. It's a strange one. And Whiskers does the work. And all Jasper seems to do is, it says things like, Jasper Collinidus took this opportunity to stop and remove his slippers, shaking sand from them as Una waited ahead of them, her stance impatient. And there's a lot of that. Then there's, he's talking about different versions of the world, flat, half spheres, oval, circular, shaped like cubes. He's there purely to describe to Elric how the world can be different and unusual. But we know that already. We don't need Jasper Collinidus to turn up and do this.
Yeah.
And it's... The same thing happens again towards the end of the chapter, where they get to where they're going, a pass, which leads to the next gate, and there's a horseman there in some kind of weird pearlescent bone armour.
Yeah.
And he thunders down on Elric with his lance, and then Whiskers flies and gets in his face, and he falls off a cliff.
Yeah. That'll learn him.
And it's like, oh, well, there was threat for a second that got it, and it's like, oh, it's done.
But there is no threat. So there's like a massive bird with three heads, which, if it's a Harryhausen thing, you can get that. That'd be quite a good fight, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Throw a few skeletons in, Bob's your undies. Yeah, that'd be good. But you've got this like massive bird attacking Una in the distance. Elric goes, oh, I haven't got any weapons, so I'll just look for a stone or something.
Yeah.
And then the cat attacks the massive bird after Jasper's going, thou naughty bird.
I actually quite enjoyed him telling the bird off. I thought that was quite amusing. I didn't mind that.
It's amusing, but it takes me completely out of the story because it just makes the dream... I think the reason behind it is obviously because then he can describe I'm dressed as a bear because I was having a dream where I was dressed as a bear with a harem, all that kind of stuff. Jack Three-Beaks was in the dream.
Yep.
So now he's escaped the dream. I think that's the only thing I can kind of get my head around was that's the reason. So, which is fine, but I don't need it. No. It didn't move the story on. He wasn't needed.
Yeah. All it serves to do is be an entertaining diversion and a plot device to move them past the next gate.
Yeah, well, that's the whole 5 chapters, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, that's Moorcock Travelogue quest mode anyway, isn't it? It's just this is just a little bit thicker. And you know what? Despite it's whimsical, it's perhaps more artfully or poetically written than his early stuff is. I'm not going to say better,
no,
but it's denser. But for some reason, despite the fact that what it describes would have taken place over 3 pages in a Hawkmoon book, and this takes place over like 15, it somehow feels less substantial for it.
Yeah.
Because in the old books, those 3 pages would have rattled by, and before you got a chance to think this is just filler, you moved on.
But it had been kinetic writing, wouldn't it? It had been that thing where all the fights were quick, but also he'd probably sum up all that stuff in about two lines.
Yeah.
And then something good would have happened. But ultimately, if you're thinking about it, Jack Three-Beaks appears, attacks Una, cat attacks the thing, bit of shouting, and the crow dies for no apparent reason. Let's move on to the next service station.
Yeah. But even having said all that, the fact it's overwritten compared to the early stuff, not overwritten in general, but overwritten compared to the early stuff, makes it more apparent and makes it more exasperating. There's still part of me that enjoys it. Like, enjoys the ridiculous description of his garb, that enjoys the ridiculous scenes of him in this garb, admonishing the 3-headed monster. The instant dismissal of the warrior on the horse. The fact that at the end of all that, it just goes, oh, that's me done.
Yeah. Ooh,
bye then.
I can't go any further. Why not? Oh, because I can't. All right. See you, Jasper. It's been ace.
Bye then.
And I was expecting him to come up with, when Jerry always turns up, he's like, oh, give my regards to Moonglum, Rakia, whoever it was.
But of course, at this point,
he doesn't.
He's only met Rakia, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He's not met Moonglum.
Yeah.
I don't know. This feels in some ways like a gratuitous cameo.
Yeah, it's that thing of it's that fan. It's the equivalent of
fan service.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of like a Marvel TV show that has Iron Man walking in the background.
This would have been Wong, wouldn't it?
Yeah, possibly.
This is the equivalent of Wong popping up in She-Hulk or something like that.
Yeah. No apparent reason.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm just thinking about it and talking about it and denigrating it makes me think, but actually it's not all that bad. It's just a different style. Maybe what I should be doing is just letting this wrap around me rather than comparing it to something he wrote in 1967.
Well, I think the other side of it is how, when you read fantasy, well, when I read fantasy now and certain authors, they're a bit more grounded, and that kind of whimsical stuff you don't normally read now.
Yeah.
So when you read it now, it's like, really? Because, I don't know. I really struggled with Jasper appearing. And I did when I read it, because I was like, really?
Yeah.
It just didn't seem to have any point.
Yeah. I like elements of it, but it's too throwaway and insubstantial to be a useful part of the story. It's just filler.
Yeah, it is. And it's filler, but it's also that tick in the box. Because the whole thing about the Eternal Champion book we've talked about before is like when another character's listed, when Eric Oz is having like dreams and he's got this massive list of his previous incarnations, you read one of them and go, brilliant.
Yeah.
And try and imagine what they're going to be like.
Yeah. But on the other hand, say you come to this book in 1989 or 1990 or 1995 and you've never read any Michael Moorcock at all, and you've read some of the fantasy stuff, you've read Dragonlance, you've read a bit of Conan, I don't know, you've read some Farford and the Grey Mouser or something like that, and you come to this, it's easy to be critical of this because we've read shitloads of Moorcock. But if I come to this from Lord of the Rings, Dragonlance, and other...
Shannara,
for pity's sake.
Shannara.
And it's interesting, early on, when I did the first episode where we talked about music, I talked to the artist known as Elric, who did all that dungeon synth. And then I talked to Nathan Guljas, who records thrash metal under the Corum moniker. And when I was chatting to him, we touched on Fortress of the Pearl, and he said, and he's a guy in his 20s, and he said Fortress of the Pearl was the first Michael Moorcock book he ever read, and it absolutely hooked him on Moorcock, which I thought was really, really interesting, because, of course, coming from it from an opposite angle and remembering how much I struggled with Fortress of the Pearl at the time made me think of it in a different way. And I thought, right, okay, if you've been reading all this fantasy stuff and you've been reading Robert E. Howard and stuff like that, and then you read the Fortress of the Pearl, I can understand why it would be so appealing to somebody.
And that's why it's got a lot of the exposition in it, though, isn't it? Because there's a bit where I think Una's talking about Elric as, you're the Emperor, you're this, you're that, you're that. And it's like it's a paragraph or like a paragraph of like speech.
Yeah.
And she is talking, basically giving the exposition of what's happening, what's happened to him.
Yeah.
You know, you were born this, you're an emperor, you're this. And if you've never read the books, then that would make sense, because it fleshes out the character, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it'd be really weird if that was the first Elric book you read, because you would go, who's this kind of Weasley pigeon? Like, with no agency.
Yeah.
He hasn't got like a soul drinking sword.
Yeah.
And because he is quite happy-go-lucky in a lot of ways in this, and he's a bit like, oh, yeah, everything's great.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That was chapter 2. Okay, this is Loz and Andy coming from the future. Whilst I was editing this podcast, I realised that when it came to chapter 2 and Sadanor, the Land of Dreams in Common, we may have missed a trick when we were being disgruntled with Jasper Colonnadus and the appearance of ginormous turbans and the kind of Deus Ex Catina of Whiskers dispatching monsters. And I think that, to some degree, using modern parlance, Moorcock is trolling the reader, and Moorcock is actually deliberately parodying himself in that chapter. For the following reasons. We mentioned the oddness of the simple dispatch of Jack Three-Beaks and the Knight, and I think Moorcock is kind of putting Elric in the position of the reader in this, and he's really only observing these fights, because before he even gets to even think about taking action, Whiskers flies in and takes care of things on 2 separate occasions. Jasper's clothing is ridiculously over the top and exaggerated. A threat's established, then a powerful artifact, in this case Whiskers, just does away with them with a minimum of fuss. And Whiskers even takes on the nature of the Black Sword when he takes care of Jack Three-Beaks. And it's almost like Moorcock's saying, we're in this place, here's the things that are happening, here's the threat. Oh, but it's all over and done with incredibly quickly, with no real degree of threat. It's actually quite lame.
And
that is my proposition.
That's your proposition. The other bit is the when Jasper talks about, I am what your amneusis, whatever it is, can't pronounce it. Come back to the pronunciation. So I had to look it up, and it is actually a person employed to write or type what another dictates. Which again kind of makes him a literary stooge. I don't know. When I was
I think that's a good way of putting it. When Whiskers takes Jack Three-Beaks apart, it says, Una watched in horror as gradually the crow shrank to a tiny wizened thing, and Whiskers at last sat back huge and round and began to clean himself, purring with considerable pleasure. That's Stormbringer, isn't it?
Yeah.
So threat happens. Oh no, how we're going to get over this latest random weird monster encounter. Well, Stormbringer sorts it out in about 35 seconds. And in this case, it's Whiskers. And if that's not enough, it happens again towards the end of the chapter. Elric observes a threat, and then it's dealt with really, really simply and quickly. And it really does feel like this chapter is just Moorcock saying, yes, it's a bit lame, isn't it? Which is actually what, when we were drunk on our ridiculous, dark, gloopy beers, we were saying this is a little bit lame. So,
we were.
Yeah, my proposition when I was listening back to that and editing it was actually, this is quite deliberate from Moorcock. In this land of dreams in common, where the problem is things that are familiar. Jasper refers to himself as a amanuensis, as you just pointed out.
Amanuensis, that was the one, yeah. Yeah, why do I need a secretary?
Yeah, yes. Yeah. As we've been criticising this for being like a Coram Quest sequence, that's exactly what it is. And that's exactly what Moorcock's done, and he's made it deliberately over the top and throwaway and silly.
Yeah, I don't think he was ever kind of attempting to write something crap. I think it's just, but I think as we talked about it, it's just that whole unreality of it all, isn't it? And it is just almost parody of previous stories, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's something we missed when we were busy rolling dice for 8% disgusting stouts.
Possibly. Yeah.
I think we need to return to the future, Loz.
Yeah, let's do that.
Stop interfering. It's time to roll the dice. We're in D4 territory now, so 5 or 6, roll again.
1.
Hello, ich bin Raspberry Berliner,
Yeah, right, okay.
which will work nicely as a palate cleanser. Although after just having had pickled onions, perhaps we'll have gone sorely wrong.
Crazy.
So don't worry, I'll have the Gaviscon on tap later on.
I forgot the Gaviscon.
The homemade Gaviscon, which basically is Bailey's.
Amazing. Yeah.
Although I don't think we have Bailey's. I think we've got Hotel Chocolat chocolate liqueur.
Sweet.
And somebody got me Peaky Blinders Irish cream whiskey liqueur for my birthday, or last Christmas or something. And that is like drinking pure sugar. I don't recommend it.
That rings a bell, actually. I think I might have got that from somewhere.
Well, everyone went Peaky Blinders mental, didn't they?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you got Peaky Blinders rum, Peaky Blinders whiskey, Peaky Blinders cream liqueur.
Yeah, one of our friends had a 1920s theme party. I can't remember why. Everybody wanted his Peaky Blinders.
Of course.
Apart from me.
Yeah.
Obviously.
And, at the end of the day, if I'm going to drink overly sweet cream liqueur, I want it to have a strange, murderous 1920s organised crime feel with stupid hats.
Exactly. Well, that was my thoughts as well.
Yeah. Raspberry Berliner. Cheers.
Ich bin ein. After the last one, it's quite acidic, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But I think we probably got this at the right time.
Yeah, I think before the...
Yeah, he says, wincing. One eye shut.
Yeah, it's what I call a Popeye beer.
Right, well, while you wince...
It's all right, I'm back in.
Okay, Chapter 3 of Beauty Found in Deep Caverns. The tunnel began to descend almost as soon as they had entered it. Where it had at first been cool, now the air became hot and humid so that sometimes it seemed to Elric he was wading through water. The little lights which gave faint illumination were not, as he had first thought, lamps or brands, but seemed naturally luminescent. Delicate nodes of soft, glowing substance, almost flesh-like in appearance. They found that they were whispering, as if unwilling to disturb any denizens of this place. Denizens. Any dezes.
Yeah.
Unwilling to disturb any dezes of this place. Yet Elric did not feel afraid here. Oh, excuse me. Excuse me. That's the combination of the Berliner and the big onions. The tunnel had the atmosphere of sanctuary, and he noticed that Una too had lost some of her normal caution, though her experience had taught her to be wary of anything as a potentially dangerous illusion. There was no obvious transition from Sadonor to Marador, save perhaps a slight change of mood. And then the tunnel had opened up into a vast natural hall of richly glowing blues and greens and golden yellows and dark pinks, all flowing one to the other, like lava which had only recently cooled. More like exotic plants than the rock they were. Scents, like those of the loveliest, headiest flowers, made Elric feel he walked in a garden. Not unlike gardens he had known as a child, places of the greatest security and tranquillity, yet there was no doubt that the place was a cavern, and that they had travelled underground to reach it. At first delighted by the sight, Elric began to feel a certain sadness, for until now he had not remembered those gardens of childhood, the innocent happiness which comes so rarely to a Melnibonéan, no matter what their age. He thought of his mother, dead in childbirth, of his infantly mourning father who would refuse to acknowledge the son who, in his opinion, had killed his wife. So again, a little bit of melancholia from Elric there, but they're in the land of old desire.
There's another one here, which I think is kind of really good part of his character. All of his forgotten yearnings were returning to him, bringing a sense of simplicity and peace. Now he remembered how those sensations had been replaced by anger, as he began to realise that there was little likelihood of his dreams ever coming true. He had raged at the injustice of the world, he had flung himself into his sorcerous studies, he had become determined to change the balance of things and introduce greater liberty, greater justice, by the means of the power he had in the world. Yet his fellow Melnibonéans, great, had refused.
His fellow Bony Malonians,
slightly spoilt, had refused to accept this logic. The early dreams had begun to fade, and with them the hope which had first lifted his heart. Now there was the hope offered him again. So that bit there, it's being a teenager, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Absolutely. This is super, super relatable, because in between those two bits that we've read, they have this conversation as well with these people who were there, and they're kind of lost to this part of the dream realms.
Yeah.
And they're this cavern of people clinging to old hopes, but stuck in this strange melancholic position at knowing that they can't achieve them, yet they reject the hope of something new.
Yeah, they've given up, haven't they? So
They've given up, and it's like, we liked the old ways and we hope that we can recapture them here. And Elric says, well, why don't you just yearn to move forward? And they say, oh, no. And it's like, how fucking relatable is that?
Well, it's age, isn't it? It's like the whole thing of, the bit I just went through with the brilliant pronunciation was, or pronunciation.
Pronunciation.
Yeah. It was, that's youth, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's kind of the joys of youth, where you can do all these things.
Yeah.
But also you've got rage at the world.
Yeah.
And yeah, when he's talking to the people going, well, why don't you look for the gate? They're like, oh, why bother? It'd be rubbish.
Yeah, it's like, well, why don't you look to the gate? It's like, why don't you move on? Yes, you have these old kind of ideas of what was good and comfortable, and you're trying to cling on to them, but you're not moving forward. You're just stuck here in this cycle of regretting that the world is not what you thought it was. It's a really great analogy for just what a fucking state this country's in at the moment. Our future is being held back by people who are stuck in a cycle of remembering what was once great and refusing to acknowledge that something else could be great too, because they want it how it was. Yeah, and Elric is almost pulled into this.
Yeah, and they're kind of bringing the whole thing of aspiring for the safety of kind of nostalgia, aren't they? It's like, oh yeah, it was brilliant. And well, it wasn't. People had rickets.
Yeah, that's right.
You know,
yeah, we used to leave our doors open.
Yeah, of course you did, but you had fuck all, mate.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Yeah. Well, you know, we never had double glazing when I was a kid. It's like, yeah, it was fucking rubbish.
Yeah, do you remember when it used to frost on the inside of your windows? Yeah, great days.
Great days. Yeah. But she's contemptuous of all this, and she reminds him that this is the land of old desires, not the land of fulfilled desire. And she also points out to him that if he stays here and gets sucked into all of this, then the Holy Girl will be the one who comes across.
Yeah, she really gives him it, doesn't she? She's like, get your shit together, mate. You know, you've gone down this path of melancholic nostalgia, and everything would be great if we came here. Nothing would change, and that's the whole problem, isn't it? If nothing changes. I mean, she sums it up, I think, with... Elric says, perhaps we could have rested there, restored our energies, said Elric. Aye, and died full of sweet melancholy. So there you go.
Yeah, so she shakes him out of it and they move on. There's another nice passage coming up where the pass, Elric's looking off to a big city. And he senses like it could be a city like Imria, and she said, yeah, it could be Imria, it could be London.
Yeah,
it could be Tanalon.
Yeah, there's another name, wasn't there, as well, where you go, I wonder what that is.
Yeah, could be Tanalon, could be a whole host of different things. And again, he's really attracted to that, and she's like, oh, for fuck's sake, Elric. He's a real drag at this point.
He really is, isn't he?
Every time something comes up, he's like, oh, this magic is amazing. Yeah, there are magic beans at every turn. Yeah. And she keeps having to pull him back onto the main path. But there's a nice bit where he gets close and he sees the state of the people trapped inside it. And it's
really good, actually. Isn't it? I was reading that bit.
The city, cool. And she describes it as the city of inventive cowardice.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And there's another horseman around.
Yeah, there's always a horseman, isn't there?
Yeah, probably the same one.
Yeah,
who just keeps on coming back.
Yeah.
Jeff the Horseman.
Yeah.
Who we found out who Jeff the Horseman really is.
Yeah, he's not really called Jeff.
And we also found out why Una wanted Elric around, really, because it's fight time.
Yeah.
It's fight time. And some sorcerer adventurers that never made it out. It's like they're the last vestiges of their presence in the dream world. Because, of course, we know that Lord Go sent lots of sorcerer adventurers into the Dreamlands and they all came a cropper. So they're coming under attack from them. But Elric, I mean, it's a bit throwaway, but I suppose Elric stories need fights. But to be honest, even Mike's heart doesn't seem to be in this one. It's a pretty perfunctory.
We don't have a sword, does he? So he gets a stalactite, or is it a stalagmite?
Kills one with a stalagmite, stroke stalactite.
Yeah, nicks his sword and his poniard.
He oozes odd blood.
Yeah.
And then he nicks his sword and his poniard. They engage in fighting, and he finds out that Una is a talented warrior as well.
She's a bit tasty on the sword as well.
She is. Yeah. So that's all good.
Yeah.
And there's some other stuff as well. Strange snouted women.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing, wasn't it? It goes from that page, and there's one page which was, for me, it ended up like there was like 14 battles described in one chapter.
Yeah.
Strange snouted women, the mysterious hat of Pat Ferrick. Yeah. Probably wasn't in there, but, there's a big list of stuff. It's like they've just gone around like stabbing people.
Yeah. When the snout-faced women attacked them with nets and spikes, it did not take them long to cut their way free and drive the cowardly creatures off. And neither were they greatly inconvenienced by the vulpine things which loped on their hind legs and had claws like birds. They even joked together as they dispatched packs of snapping beasts which resembled nothing so much as horses the size of dogs, and spoke a few words of a human tongue, though without any sense of the meaning.
Well, that's cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got like horses that are the size of dogs, which is quite cool in a way. Yeah. Speaking English.
But you know what? All that's fine because it leads on to the brass-capped rabbit warrior.
Mate. Honestly.
The Count of Magnus Dor.
I've made a few notes about the aforementioned Count of. Mate, what was
Tell me.
What was that all about? So, I mean...
Well, my mental note on the Count of Magnus Dor, as he's busy throwing his spear into oak trees that scream as he does so, is, yes, I love the Count of Magnus Dor, giant rabbit warrior in a brass cap.
Yeah, but ultimately the most pointless appearance of anybody ever. Literally.
It's amazing. It's amazing. So he explains that he rules these parts.
Yeah.
And that if they don't turn back, he'll have to fight them. But it was then that they heard a yell from the other side of the right pillar, and something white and rearing appeared there. It was another of the pale riders in armour of bone, tortoiseshell and mother of pearl, with horrible eyes slitted with hatred. His horse's hoofs beating on a barrier which had not been there when Una and Elric passed through. Then it was down, and the warrior was charging. The albino and the dream thief made to defend themselves, but it was the Count of Magnus Dor, who moved ahead of them and jabbed his spear up at the warrior's body. Steel was deflected by an armour stronger than it looked, and the sword rose and fell almost contemptuously, slicing down through the brass helm and into the brain of the rabbit warrior. He staggered backwards, his hand clutching at his head, his sword and spear abandoned. His round brown eyes seemed to grow still wider, and he began to squeal. He turned slowly, round and round, then fell to his knees.
Amazing.
So, Boo, to introduce him, and killing Magnus Dor in the space of 2 pages, Boo, I say. Second, there's a paragraph which references something.
I just before you go there, my kind of whole synopsis of that was, he came, he pontificated, he got brained.
Yeah, he came, he made some trees scream.
He went out.
He got his brain smashed in. And
for no apparent reason.
so Una embraced him swiftly, then she embraced. Elric and Una have started hugging and embracing quite a lot.
Yeah.
Then she sank to one knee to inspect the count of Magnus Dor. In death, he more resembled a man, for already the hair on his face and hands was fading to grey, and even his flesh seemed on the point of disappearance. The brass helm, too, had turned an ugly shade of silver. Elric was reminded of Alnac's dying. He averted his eyes. Una, too, stood up quickly, and there were tears in her eyes. The tears were not for the Count of Magnus Dor. Elric took her in his arms. He was suddenly full of longing for someone he barely remembered from old dreams, the dreams of his youth. Someone who, perhaps, had never existed. He thought he felt a slight shudder run through Una as he embraced her. He reached out for a memory of a little boat, of a fair-haired girl sleeping at the bottom of the vessel as it drifted out to open sea, of himself sailing a skiff towards her, full of pride that he might be her rescuer. Yet he had never known such a girl, he was sure, though Una reminded him of that girl, grown up. Is that a reference to something we should recognise?
Probably not. I think it's probably...
That's fine then.
Unless it's part of Una's background.
Yeah, maybe so. But anyway, the Dream Forest throws some more traps at them. Elric cries about his dad.
Yeah.
And they have a romantic shag. Yeah.
Amongst the corpses.
Yeah.
Of rabbit warriors.
Yeah. And that's another one of the things that reminds me, for reasons I can't remember, and I'm going to have to reread it, The City of the Autumn Stars. I'm sure there's odd throwaway anthropomorphic animals in City in the Autumn Stars. I know Reynard the Fox.
Reynard's in it, yeah.
In City in the Autumn Stars, so
and
I might be just
he is later on there, doesn't he, in the other Elric books as well.
Right, I might be mixing a lot of these things up. Is he in the later Elric books, like, round about the time Mrs. House? Is in the later Elric
God, yeah.
We'll talk about Mrs. House.
God, yes.
We'll talk about... Again, that's another example of odd whimsy creeping in.
Odd whimsy, and for me... I'm checking out on that point, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically the Count, there he was.
I liked him. I liked the cut of his jib.
He could have been someone.
Yeah, could have been a contender.
But unfortunately, he was just a knob, wasn't he? He was just like, oh, this is my realm now.
Well, I don't know that it was a knob. I think he was there. He's like, I'm busy making oak trees scream. Who are these two knobheads?
You come here.
Yeah. Get out my forest. No, fight me.
Judging me for making these trees scream.
Yeah.
With me. Yeah, exactly.
Fight me.
But why?
I don't know.
Why? Just why?
Why any of this?
Yeah. But that's the whole thing, isn't it? When I was reading that chapter, I was like, why is he in it? Why has he just been brained?
Yeah.
What does it bring to the table?
Yeah.
Does it bring anything to the table? Is the table over there and I'm not invited to the table?
I just like giant rabbit man warriors in brass caps.
Well, you all do, but he wasn't in it enough, wasn't he?
No,
he didn't bring us along his journey, did he?
If we play a fantasy role-playing game at some point in the future, I am going to play the Count.
I think you should.
Magnus Dor.
And if I run a Corum game, I expect him to be in it.
Yep. Yeah. Not only will I play him, he's going to really piss you off.
Yeah, of course he is. But he's probably going to be called Gerard or something.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I'll just... I don't know if eating a pickled onion after that super sour raspberry is a good idea, but I'm going to do it anyway.
As sours go, it's quite pleasant.
I like it.
It's a good summer beer, I think.
And the great thing is, they were in the end-of-line box for £1 a pop in my beer place.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Not your beer place, everybody's beer place. It'd be elitist about it.
Yeah. Anyway, Chapter 4.
Chapter 4.
The intervention of a navigator.
And I've summed this up as a... So when I was looking at it, I was like, how would I sum it up in one sentence?
Yeah.
My sum up is, the stairs. Oh, God, the stairs. A heroic flight of stairs. That was my kind of synopsis of the whole piece.
Yeah. But first things first, I've got to roll the deadly dice of wandering beer. So we're in D3 territory now, which makes things slightly easier. So it's 4, which means 2, which means...
What do you mean means 2? What does that...
1 D3. 1 to 2 is 1.
Right,
3 to 4 is 2. 5 to 6 is 3.
The Derry Toms rules are getting more and more confusing.
Yeah. It's like Dream Thief rules.
It is,
There are so many of them, you can't keep up.
Behold.
So we are on Naughty and Nice Malted Honeycomb Chocolate Stout. We're back on stout again. 6%.
Yep, excellent. Mere 6%.
Let's go.
By the power of Grayskull.
I've got to say, my head's starting to feel this beer now. But I guess that's the point, isn't it?
Well, I suppose it is the point. Might need some Gaviscon, stroke Bailey.
Stroke Peaky Blinders. Cream liqueur. It's close to hand, don't worry.
Let me...
I'll bring it over in a minute. We could just swig it out the bottle. I'll be quiet, like Gaviscon. You know, I'm starting to think that these are just lies.
Yeah.
I think they're just lies. The other one didn't taste of nugget. It just tasted of chocolate stout.
Nougat.
This one doesn't taste of honeycomb. It just tastes of chocolate stout.
I think just people are taking the piss out of me and you deliberately.
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah. I think the saw's coming.
Yeah, they did. So you
Stop coming from a fucking mile off.
Yeah, well, this saw's coming as a genre.
Yeah.
These two knobheads will drink anything. If it's slightly unusual, they'll well have it.
Yeah. Right.
Chapter 4.
Chapter 4.
The stairs. Oh, God, the stairs.
Oh, God, stairs. Surprised by his own lack of confusion.
Great start.
Filled with an apparent clarity, Elric stepped side by side with Una through the shimmering silver gateway into Immador, called mysteriously by dream thieves the Land of New Ambition.
Just a quick interjection on the names section, because when you're reading the whimsical names, you are a bit like, oh, please fuck off.
Yeah.
Luckily, Una does explain it, saying, we have to give accurate descriptions of the names, so then we can own them. So that's why they're all called, the Stairs of Despair, or whatever it is.
Yeah. The Ladder of Indigestion.
Yeah, and the Land of Gaviscon. A slightly acidic twinge. That kind of stuff. That's where I'm currently residing.
They're in the Land of New Ambition.
Of course they are.
And found himself at the top of an heroic flight of steps.
Exactly, as I said, a heroic flight of steps.
Which curved downward towards a plain, which stretched towards the horizon, turned pale, misty blue, and which can almost have mistaken for the sky.
Let's just pause it there for a minute, right? So I class myself as having a reasonable imagination, so I can visualise certain weird stuff. How do you visualise the heroic flight of stairs?
I visualise it like there's a tube station in London with a sign at the bottom of the steps that warns you about trying to tackle them. It's near University College London, and I can't remember the name of the tube station, but
actual proper stairs.
Yeah, it's a winding staircase.
Yeah, it's the Covent Garden round there, isn't it?
No, it's near UCL. It's between UCL and King's Cross. And when everybody piles off, there's 3 massive lifts.
Yes.
And everybody queues for these 3 lifts. And then there's a spiral staircase that only 25-year-old women who do a lot of step exercise.
I did it once.
Just run up.
Yeah.
And once I walked in and I thought, fuck this, I'm going to try the steps. And I got up about 30 steps. I was like, oh yeah, they said that there was like 2 million of them and there was a warning sign. And that warning sign was entirely meant for me. So I just, with my head down, like an absolute loser, I went back down those steps again. And got
I'm trying to think which one it is. I've been in that one as well.
Yeah.
It's one of the central ones, I'm sure it is.
That is what I would describe as a heroic flight of steps.
Yeah. If you haven't been at Monument as well, that's a heroic flight of steps. Yeah. That can fuck off.
Yeah. The horizon turned misty pale blue. Pale misty blue. Now then, when it comes to descriptions of skies, I've always loved the sky was the colour of a television turned to a dead channel.
Best line ever.
Best line ever.
Yeah.
Unless you were born after a certain date, in which case that much means blue.
We were talking about this on Tuesday
and
our gaming group, because we talked about that being the best line ever.
Yeah.
Neil Gaiman changed it to in Neverwhere to... He updated it, but I can't remember what it was, so it's a really rubbish anecdote.
Because to anybody who doesn't remember Static, on television screens, it doesn't make any sense because it says that the sky is really blue. But there's a nice replacement description of a sky colour.
I've got it here as well. Yeah.
Coming up in here. For a moment, you thought that he and Una were alone on the vast stairway, and then he saw it was crowded with people. Some were engaged in hectic conversation, some bartering, some embracing, while others were gathered around holy men, speechmakers, priestesses, storytellers, either listening avidly or arguing. The steps down to the plain were alive with every manner of human intercourse. Elric saw snake charmers, bear baiters, jugglers and acrobats. They were dressed in costumes typical of the desert lands. Enormous silk pantaloons of green, blue, gold, vermilion and amber. Coats of brocade or velvet. Turbans, burnouses and caps of the most intricate needlework.
What is a burnouse?
No idea.
Excellent, I should buy one.
Burnished metal and silver, gold, precious jewels of every kind. Animals, stalls, baskets overflowing with produce, with fabrics, with goods of leather and copper and brass. Love it. Love this idea of a heroic staircase.
Yeah.
That's basically just levels and levels and levels of vibrant marketplace. It's a fucking great image. It's a really great description.
You know what it reminds me as well? The condition of music has got a description of the party that they have. I can't remember if it's New Year. I've not read it for ages. Yeah. Is it New Year or is it just like the end of the world?
It's like the latest version of the 3-month-long parties that happens in every book.
And the description of that is beautiful. It's really, really cool. And when I read that, it reminds me of some of the, I don't know, in my head, it reminds me of London Frost Fairs when you read about just somebody describing a market anyway. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
She's just really evocative. And you're just like, I want to go there. Yeah, really cool. The sky thing, and it's in chapter 5, so I'm skipping ahead slightly. He does describe the sky like diseased pewter, which is amazing.
Well, that's one of them. But there's one coming up here where the sky was the colour of bad liver gone bad or bad liver.
Yes, that's the other one.
Which is also amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Both of those things.
Yeah.
So when I was read it was like diseased pewter.
Yeah.
You wouldn't put those two words together, but you can kind of get it.
Yeah.
It's really, really good.
Yeah. There is, we find that although this whole vista looks incredible, that because it's the Dreamland, there's something slightly wrong with it. It's lacking in substance. Like much they encounter, it looks groovy, but it's hollow because one gets some fruit. And
the oranges are shit, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's like
taste of nothing.
It's like
a tasteless orange.
It's like when you get one of those baggy satsumas.
Yeah.
I've been there a while. It's like,
it's no good, is it?
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, it's bitterly disappointing.
Yeah.
But there's an interesting paragraph here when they're wandering through this market and this mass of people. It says, she linked her arm in his own. Since their lovemaking in the wood, a sense of considerable comradeship and mutual liking had grown up between them. He knew no guilt. He knew in his heart that he had betrayed no one, and it was clear she was equally untroubled. In some strange way they'd restored each other, making their combined energy something more than its sum. This was the kind of friendship he had never really known before, and he was grateful for it. He believed that he had learned much from Una, and that the Dream Thieves would teach him more, and would be valuable to him when he returned to Melniboné to claim his throne back from Yerkun. And I think one of the pitfalls of these books being written out of sequence is that events can undermine certain aspects of a character's motivations. If you're reading this in order, and not reading this 10 years after you read all the others, like we did, Elric having this intense sexual relationship with Una, does, I think, take something away from the purity of his purpose later in the saga regarding Cimmeral. Because when you read The Dreaming City, I mean, okay, she's his cousin, but when you read The Dreaming City...
slightly problematic.
She's his drive to destroy his own city and his own people.
Yeah, she gets him.
So when you drop in this thing in between those early chapters, where he's having this fantastic, passionate relationship with Una the Dream Thief, just weakens that slightly.
It does a bit, and I think it goes, without leaping towards the new book, the fact that he's left Sarazinia, and his first two chapters is seeing, well, let's just...
Yeah, but I'm on the underside of the world.
Yeah.
I'm in the upside down. It doesn't count.
Yeah, exactly. But that seems to be a bit of a justification with a lot of it, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's the same. It's like, I'm in the dream realms. I'm only dreaming that I'm shagging Una.
Yeah. Yeah, Cimarilla won't mind. She'll be all right.
She'll be fine with it. Well, Cimarilla probably don't mind. Melnibonians are
they're all right, aren't they? She's
off the rockers, aren't they?
Tapping a servant over the head with a hammer or something for a laugh.
Very probably. That's one of the things that made me chuckle a little bit, actually, when there's a reference to him in the gardens of his youth. It's like, oh, the gardens, ha, 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 ha. Anyway, back to the choir of people that have been operated on to make them sing at certain pitches.
Yeah, I imagine the gardens to be like Nero's garden, where you got people set on fire to light his way.
I kind of imagine a Melnibonian garden being like something out of the Caligula film, where it's like, oh, bring me a slave so I can pour wine into them until they almost explode and then pierce them with a sword so I can listen to the sound go,
yeah, exactly.
That's what a Melnibonian garden.
Yeah, of course it is. But they'd have an orchestra of it. But I also think if you go back to the original, the Elric and Melniboné, the Dr.
Dr.
Him.
Elric of Melniboné.
Which is how I will pronounce it from now on. So,
yeah, sorry, do go on.
I don't feel like Dr. Jess, right? So you've got Dive Him Tvo, Dive Him Slow, Elric, Coon, Dr. Jess. Yeah. Just seems a bit out there.
Yeah, Dive Him Tvo, Dive Him Slom, Tanglebones.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Tanglebones. Forgot about him. Yeah, those two were a bit like, but I think that was his Mervyn Peake.
Yeah.
So it's
totally,
I really need some stupid name people. Tanglebones.
Oh, yeah, it wouldn't sound so bad if his real name was Jeff Tanglebones.
Or Paul.
Pot.
Well, actually, everybody else called him Paul. He's probably around the back with the servants going, He still called me Tanglebones. Fucking do, man.
Yeah. All right, Paul.
Yeah.
Give us a players.
Yeah, same with Dr. Jeff. Yeah. I'm not even a doctor. Jess is taking the piss. I'm a torturer.
Anyway,
name's Dave. Anyway.
The pearlescent warrior's back.
Of course he is. And A-Up.
Yeah.
Who is he?
Well, we find he's the pale warrior, but Elric sees something of Alnak Kreb in him.
Of course he does.
Yeah. Well, the battle. But without any interference on this occasion, Elric is close to being bested until a veiled woman turns up and interferes. Thank goodness.
Again.
And she calls out. So, where are we?
It's very similar to the crow thing, I think.
She says, Pale warrior, you must do no further violence to these travellers. The warrior grunted but ignored the woman. His teeth snapped at Elric's throat. He tried to turn the poignard towards the albino's heart. There were drops of foaming saliva on his lips now, beads of white rimming his mouth. Pale warrior! Suddenly, the warrior began to speak, whispering to Elric as if to a fellow conspirator. Don't listen to her. I can aid thee. Why do you not come with us and learn to explore the Great Steppe, where all the hunting is rich? There are melons, tasting like the most delicate cherries. I can give thee such a wonderful clothing. Do not listen. Do not listen. Yes, I am Alnek, thy friend. Yes. Elric was repelled by the insane babble, more than he had been by the creature's horrible appearance and his violence. Think of all the power there is. They fear thee. They fear me, Elric. I know thee. Let us not be rivals. Together we can succeed. I am not free, but thou couldst journey for us both. I am not free, but thou wouldst never bear responsibility. I am not free, but Elric, I have many slaves at my disposal. They are thine. I offer thee new wealth and new philosophies, new ways of fulfilling every desire. I fear thee, and thou fearest me. So we will bind us together one to the other. It is the only tie that ever means anything. They dream of thee, all of them, even I who do not dream. Thou art the only enemy. Poor Alnak Kreb.
Yeah, he's ended up being a bit of a gibbon, isn't he?
Yeah, it's a bit sad, isn't it?
But the whole thing of the melons will taste like cherries, you don't want that, do you?
It's a bit odd, isn't it?
It's like, really?
I don't know. I mean, if you like cherries, a melon that tastes like a cherry is probably good, but why not just have a cherry?
Yeah, exactly.
Why not have a cherry the size of a melon?
Now he's talking, he's ruined it for us all, hasn't he?
Yeah. It's fucking useless.
No wonder he's dead.
Yeah, that's right.
What an idiot.
This is why he failed.
Yeah.
He's eventually convinced to sod off anyway, and this navigator who's turned up, this veiled woman in robes, takes them on a barge forward to the next and penultimate gate. And There's some really nice detailing here of weird things that pass by in a couple of sentences. Lots and lots of it. Elric realises close to the gate, he gets this sense that the final realm is one of chaos, and he has no access to his sword or his patron, or probably even his sorcery in this new place.
Chapter 5 is a completely different beast, I think.
Well, you know what? It's all down to the dice now. Chapter 5, the dice will decide, do we have Turkish baklava pale at a tidy 5.5, or do we have caramel cookie chocolate stout?
Definitely not a Twix.
At 8%.
Oh, do we have to have one each?
Yep.
Yeah, right, okay.
Well, don't have to.
Well, but you just said we do, so I'm just following you.
It's yet another one of the rules of dream thievery.
Yeah, exactly.
It's your turn to roll. 1 to 3 is baklava pale ale. 1. Oh! It's not quite Snake Eyes, but the equivalent of Snake Eyes.
It's close, isn't it?
Yeah. So the Turkish baklava pale will be our end of podcast something or other.
Talk us through this naughty beverage.
Yeah. Our signature chocolate stout, wrapped up in the flavours of everybody's most loved chocolate treats. Fit for any festive celebration. Well, you know what, Vocation? I reckon every single one of these is exactly the same.
With a slightly different wrapper.
Ever so slightly stronger.
Slightly different hat.
Yeah. Let's go. Impress us.
Right, you crazy bastards. If it doesn't taste like a Twix, I'll be right into my MP. If I knew it was.
Who is your MP?
Some guy I vote for, but don't know his name.
Yeah.
Weirdly, that does taste different.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
The other two tasted largely similar. But this one tastes only 80% similar.
Yeah.
That's all right.
That's sort of slight nuance to it.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God it's actually okay.
It tastes like salted caramel dessert.
It does a bit.
Which is all right. Which brings us to chapter 5.
Chapter 5. Thank God this is the last chapter. I don't think my brain could survive much more of this wandering beer table.
But I do think the chapter 5 very much has the parallels to the Queen and King of Swords for me.
Yeah. I think you should read the first page of chapter 5.
The mighty barrier of obsidian rock suddenly started to flow. A mass of glassy green flooded down into the water, which hissed and began to stink, and the mountains of steam rose ahead of them. As the steam gradually dissipated, another river was revealed. This one, flowing through the narrow walls of a deep canyon, appeared of natural origin, and Elric, his mind now keyed to interpretation, wondered if it was not the same river that they had crossed earlier when he had fought the Pale Warrior on the bridge.
He didn't fight the Pale Warrior.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
Oh, fucking wanker.
The cat did.
Yeah.
Cat won, Elric nil.
Yeah. Stolen valour.
Yeah, exactly. You know, we all hate that. Lady Sow, we didn't mention her name.
Oh, yeah.
Or Sughar.
Suff.
Lady Suff. It's equivalent of slough or slough, isn't it?
Slough. Well, yeah, bruff. In East Yorkshire, we have bruff, don't we?
We have bruff and slough.
Is it brow or bruff?
Yeah, so we do have both of those things. So I think Lady Slough, it'd be Suff, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Or Lady Sow.
Yeah, sow sounds something like that. Cow.
Sow would be better, I think.
Yeah.
But Lady
Lady
Sow is the woman, the veiled woman from chapter 4.
How do they say it in the audiobook?
I don't know. We could find out.
Yeah, not now. Later.
No. And this is the one that had and overhead they could see a sky like deceased pewter.
Yeah, but first,
in which
the sky was the colour of bad liver.
Yeah.
So we'll get both in the same chapter.
Is that the same chapter? Right,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's all over the skies, this chapter, isn't he?
Yeah.
Then the barge, which had seemed so steady, appeared at once fragile as waters tossed it, roaring steadily downwards until Elric thought they must eventually reach the very core of the world. Standing with Lady Sow at the prow of the boat, Una and Elric helped to use the tiller to hold a course that was almost steady. And then, ahead, the river ended without warning, and they had tipped over a waterfall. And before they knew it, they were landing heavily in calmer water, the barge bobbing like a scrap of bread on a pond, and overhead they could see a sky like diseased pewter. in which dark, leathery things flew and communicated with desolate cries over palms whose leaves resembled nothing so much as viridian skins stretched out to await a sun that never rose. There was a rich, rotten smell about the place, and the constant splashing and distant roaring of the water filled a silence broken only by the flying creatures above the rocks and the foliage which surrounded them.
It is very Swords trilogy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good. The viridian, shrill viridian things.
Yeah. It's great stuff, and it's all a bit weird and nasty. And we've got those 2 lines about the sky. We've got diseased pewter. A page or so later, we've got the sky was becoming, soon the sky was the colour of bad liver again.
The description's great, though. I love it. Really reminds me of the Coram book, so.
Yeah.
Which is not a bad thing.
No, certainly not. And again, it adds to the sense that this feels a lot more like a Coram book than an Elric book.
Do you reckon if he'd written Coram differently, he'd have used him more? Because he brought him back for 3 books, which was kind of quite...
You know what?
I was quite surprised.
Yeah. We ain't got to him yet, but back in the day, if you'd have asked me 10, 15 years ago which is the best Coram sequence, I would have said the second one with the Cold Folk. But having reread it in the last 5 years, I found it really tiresome.
Yeah, so...
I think the setting's brilliant.
The
Cold Folk, the Foy Mayor, all that stuff, fantastic.
I think the first book was great.
But that whole quest mode and all the Goffin on the dwarf stuff and the giant city on the giant horse and
the giant horse can fuck right
like we need the colander of Donaldson in order to defeat this Foy Mayor, because if you even suggest to him that he cooks sprouts in a colander, he loses all corporeal being. It's like, oh god, this is really tedious.
But it's what is expected, isn't it?
First book
without
great.
A colander and you cooking sprouts.
Yeah. First book great. Second book hard work. Third book half hard work, great ending.
The ending was amazing.
Yeah.
Brilliant ending. Love the ending. But then they rewrote the ending for Quest for Tanalorn, didn't they?
Yeah, they did, yeah.
Which I also loved.
One day we will get to Quest for Tanalorn.
But
mixed feelings about all that stuff. So yeah, this feels a lot more like a Coram quest line, like sort of through passage to get to a climax. And I kind of like it because it's got such great stuff in it. All of the flavour in here is so fucking packed with flavour.
Yeah.
It's packed with flavour. And there's some really good stuff in it as well. It's like, there's definitely an awful theme going on in this realm. After Queen So explains that her friend Edith the poet may help out.
Yeah, he doesn't though, does he?
Well, I don't know. We don't get to Edith the poet in book 2, don't we?
No.
Save that for book 3.
Is he in book 3?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll find out. Won't we?
I don't know.
But she makes this reference to Edith the poet.
Yeah. Well, I get that, yeah.
I'm sure we'll find out at some point. But
we do get...
the awful theme.
Bayless Hammond.
Oh, yeah. The awful theme kicks in strong. There's the walls on either side now had great jagged caves in them where the water echoed and tumbled. Queen So seemed nervous of these and kept the bard carefully in the centre of the river. Elric saw shadows moving within the caves, both above and below the water. He saw red mouths opening and closing and saw pale unblinking eyes staring. They have the air of chaos-born creatures, and he wished mightily then for his rune sword, for his patron Duke of Hell, for his repertoire of spells and incantations. The albino was not altogether surprised when at last a voice spoke from one of the caverns. "I am Balis Jamon, Lord of the Blood, and I wish to have some kidneys."
Exactly. Oh, I want to call him Bayless Hammond.
Bayless Hammond. "We sail on," cried Queen So in response. "I am not your food, nor shall I ever be." "Their kidneys, theirs," the voice demanded implacably. "I have fed on no true grub for so long. Some kidneys. Some kidneys."
It reminds me of one of your games. It really does. When I was rereading it, I was like, yeah, that's well one of your your Eternal Champion.
Awful themed
Eternal
Champion.
Bayless Hammond would well be in it, wouldn't it?
Elric drew his sword and his dagger. Una did the same. "You shall not have mine, sir." "Nor mine," said Una, seeking the source of the voice. They could not be sure of which of the many caves sheltered the speaker. "I am Bayless Hammond, Lord of the Blood. You'll pay a toll here in my land. 2 kidneys for me." I'll take yours instead, sir, if you like, said Elric defiantly.
Was the was talking about the Coram parallel?
Yeah.
It was Duke Tyr, wasn't it, who built the Palace of Blood or something, and he had like a boar face, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll take yours instead, sir, if you like, said Elric defiantly. Will you now? There was a great movement from the furthest cave, and water foamed in and out. Then something stooped and came wading into midstream, its fleshy body festooned with half-decayed plants and ruined blooms, its horned snout lifted so that it could stare at them from two tiny black eyes. The fangs in the snout were broken, yellow and black, and a red tongue licked at them, flicking little pieces of rotten meat into the water. It held one great paw over its chest. When the paw was lowered, it revealed a dark, gaping hole where the heart would have been. I am Baelis Hammon, Lord of the Blood. Look what I must fill for me to live. Have mercy, little creatures. A kidney or two, and I'll let you pass. I have nothing here while you are complete. You must make justice and share with me. This is my only justice for you, Lord Baelis, said Elric, gesturing with a sword which seemed a feeble thing, even to him. You will never be complete, Baelis Hammon, called out Queen Sow. Not until you know more of mercy. I am fair. One kidney will do. The paw began to reach towards Elric, who cut at it but missed, then cut again and felt the sword strike the creature's hide, which scarcely showed a mark. The paw grabbed at the sword. Elric withdrew it. Baelis Hammon growled with mixture of frustration and self-pity, and reached both paws towards the kidney. But Baelis Hammon is fucking great.
Oh, yeah,
I love him.
He's got it all.
He's amazing, but he's a fucking idiot.
He is an idiot.
Because he is conned by Una, says, here, have a kidney.
Yeah, it wasn't a kidney, was it?
No, it's just something from a provisions. It was probably a bag of black pepper-flavoured edamame bean snacks.
Yeah, exactly.
Or something really rubbish.
Repackaged. He went, yeah, nice one. I love that. Yeah.
He seems happy with it.
Yeah.
But get away with it.
Yeah. But imagine if that was a gaming scenario. Yeah. So Baelis Hammon goes, right, I want somebody's kidneys.
Yeah.
And one of the players went, I'll just use this stone. I'll just wash it a bit. Yeah. It looks a bit like a kidney.
Yeah.
It was a bean, wasn't it? I've got this massive bean.
I've got this massive kidney bean.
Not only have I got a massive bean in my backpack, have you really?
Yeah.
What? Why?
Role preparedness.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is... You go back to Gumshoe.
Yeah.
Preparedness, here's me magic bean.
Yeah.
I pass it over. As a GM, you'd be like, fuck off. I'm not having
As a GM, I would be, this is awesome.
Well, yeah, probably.
Yeah,
right.
you would, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You know, if I had Baelis Hammon in my game shouting, give me your kidneys.
And somebody...
One kidney will do.
Yeah.
And one of the players went, you know what, I'll polish up this enormous magic bean and I'll dip it in red wine.
Yeah.
I'd be over the fucking moon.
Play. Yeah, you're right. You are right.
The moon.
Yeah, I'm underestimating.
Yeah. But, yeah, I love Baelis Hammon.
Yeah, he needs to have his own show, doesn't he?
And the great thing is, like all the other great characters that are suddenly introduced in this, one of them,
he fucks up.
He fucks up. He doesn't get his brain cleft.
No.
It's
He's
amazing.
probably hanging out with some rabbit dude.
Yeah.
And,
I hope he comes back.
Yeah.
I'm sure he won't.
He might.
This is for us to bring him back. It's for us to keep us keep him in our hearts and bring him back via fan fiction.
The Mysterious Adventures of Baelis Hammon.
Yeah, I'll have to have him in Volume 3 of the journal.
Make it so.
But this realm, frankly, is tripping balls.
Yeah, it's off its tits.
Yeah, it really is. A giant wave carries them on. They have a battle with a horde of dirty bums.
Yeah.
Stinking dirty bums.
Yeah.
The Pale Warrior turns up to help for some reason, then buggers off.
Yeah. It's a bit weird, that bit, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's like they're being lifted up in the boat by some smellies, and then he just clefts and...
Yeah. Then 3 giant moths pick up the boat and carry him further on.
Yeah.
Elric goes a bit wobbly, but Una kicks him in the shins, and he comes round. She slaps him around and kicks him in the shins, and he's like, oh yeah, sorry, I was losing it a bit for a second. And then they arrive at the final gate, and Elric questions Queen Sow regarding her identity, because he had this suspicion
that he's Varadia's mother.
That she may be the mother.
Are you Varadia's
but
mother?
Sadly, he asks her regarding her identity, and she says, I no longer remember.
And then probably falls down a
And then
cliff.
probably falls off a cliff.
Yeah.
But we won't find out until book 3, because that's the end of book 2.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
The sounds, the smells that we've been through in book 2.
Yeah. You know what? We did book 1
Book 3's really
a million
short
years
as
ago.
well.
Well, it's a good job book 3's short, 'cause we've just done 2 hours on book 2.
Yeah.
So hooray, maybe we'll do an hour-long book 3. We'll think of another reason to talk for longer. But thoughts on book 2?
It's a double-edged sword for me. I think some very good bits. Jasper Cornelius.
Yeah.
He can bugger off. There's a lot of stuff which was irrelevant for me. It's kind of, you could have condensed it to about 2 chapters.
Yeah.
And it still would have the same impact. You could still have the same descriptions, the same motivation for Elric and Una, without all the bullshit.
Yeah.
It's a picaresque. Yes, kind of journey, but is it needed?
It's not needed, but the more I read it, the more I forgave it. And there's so much in there I love. For every Jasper Colonnadus, there's a Baylis ham on. And I fucking love Rabbit Guy in brass cap who gets his brain split after 2 pages.
But irrelevant.
Totally irrelevant, but just visually, in my imagination.
You want to be that character.
Wonderful. I love it. I just love it. I think it's really vivid, really evocative. I really, really like it. So, whereas book 1, I think a lot of book 1 felt throwaway as well, especially when he's getting to encounters in the desert with one sect after another, and then I don't know, some scorpion creatures, whatever it was.
And then it was Glastonbury when he got there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This, despite the fact that it's psychedelic and all over the place, still managed to feel in some ways more focused than book 1. And I think the characterisation of Elric, I think, is really good, even though we said earlier it would have been nicer to have the POV character be Una instead. Yeah. I like the characterisation of Elric. I think it's sound, whilst, notwithstanding the fact that I think some of the little bits perhaps undermine his motivations further down the line regarding Cimmeral and things like that. But I don't know, I dig it. As the first introduction of Elric's continued adventures in Dreamland, which ends up being a massive thing. Yeah. Because there's the making of a sorcerer, there's the Revenge of the Rose, where the entire thing takes place while he's strapped to a mast.
Yeah, they're the new 3, aren't they?
Yeah, it opens up a whole lot of possibilities. And on the whole, considering my memories of it were pretty negative, reading it now, I actually quite like it.
I think it's a lot better. I think this particular kind of scenario, and I think it'd be better for Coram.
Yeah.
I think if they could have crowbarred some Coram travels first class around the multiverse on his gap year, it probably worked. But
well, you know what? If in 1989 Mocock thinks, you know what, I'm going to write a new novel, and Elric's my bestseller, I'm going to send it into an Elric book. You know what? Fuck, go away to argue.
Yeah, it's always going to be that, isn't it? Yeah. Of course you would.
Yeah.
But as you said, you can definitely tell the dovetailing of the story with Elric. He's not that important to that story at all.
No. And I come away from this actually really looking forward to doing chapter 3. So I think we should set ourselves a target of doing it in less than 9 months.
No, we should definitely do it soon. And it's really short.
Yeah. It might only be a 3-beer podcast.
I think it might be. We might have to do almost a wine or something.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? We'll see. But for now, thank you, Loz, for returning to Derry Toms. And once we've finished this last stout, well, we might just drink the 9 and 10ers. And we might even record it if we're in a fit state as a patron extra, because, my dear patrons, we owe you, I don't know, I wouldn't call it love. Obviously, we owe you love.
Yeah.
But I'm not suggesting that listening to me and Loz drink 9 and 10% ridiculous stouts could really be interpreted as any form of love.
I think it's more it's martyrdom. And martyrdom is a conceit.
We do it so you don't have to.
Yeah, exactly.
But for now, farewell from Derry Toms.
Take care.
Massive thanks to Loz for coming back for part 2 of The Fortress of the Pearl, and hopefully it won't be too long. Certainly less than 8 months before we get back to part 3. Now, as it happens, that slate of beers was a bit of a challenge, as our intellectual capability to actually absorb the text diminished as the ABV rose relentlessly. After we finished recording, I managed the 9%er, but the 10er was a bridge too far, and most of it went down the sink. But Loz's brace, on the other hand, remained untouched on the table. So I anyway, decided to do a quick prize draw and send them to a patron demon. In this case, due to the excessive cost of posting food and booze outside the UK, I'm afraid I had to limit it to those on these isles, but the lucky recipient was Paul Hillary. So, unlucky Paul, we'll get them in the post as soon as possible. But now, thanks as always to our patrons. First, those without tier: Anthony Piconti, Tim Cardos, Dave Dempster, and Sebastian Weetabix. And our chaos engineers: Andrew Cicluna, Andrew Van Ness, Anthony Porter, Benjamin Fletcher, Dave Griffiths, Dave Voxman, Jim Kirkland, John W. Lays, Jules Lawrence, Lee Gary, Mal Pertwee, Mary Catherine, Matt Saltz, Menion, Nelbert, Paul McRandall, Scott Butler, Simon Perrins, Tony Malazzo, and, after docking at the Purple Towns to stock up on Plume brandy, we have 3 new travellers aboard the Donbass. First, Ray Otis, and, as is our ritual, I dropped Ray a line to see what brought him aboard, and he said, "I've been listening for over a year now and really enjoy the cast. I live in San Diego, California, USA. I grew up on board games, role-playing games, and books. My favourite early books were Lord of the Rings, the Earthsea trilogy, Dragon Riders of Pern, Stainless Steel Rat, Lord Valentine's Castle, etc. I picked up Moorcock later in life. I think I started reading Elric in my early 30s. I'm 55 now. Right now my favourite is Coram, but I'd be hard-pressed to say why, because I don't think it's necessarily the best written of his series. It has something to do with the mythic feel of that world, kind of like Moorcock got some Jack Kirby Eternals in his mix. These days I struggle to find fantasy I like. 99% of the fantasy I like is pre-1980s. Hell, most of the science fiction I love is old too. The last book I read that blew my mind was Wolfbane by Frederick Pohl and C.M. Kornbluth. I highly recommend it. It's a jam-packed classic of only 140 pages that seamlessly goes from dystopia to cyberpunk to military SF in that span. All of it brilliant. And it was written in 57 to 59. If you pick it up, make sure your printing is from 59. The 57 version is shorter and appeared in Galaxy. It's missing some good stuff. Most of the ebooks you find, for instance, is that short edition. Say hi to Phil. My favourite episodes are when you are both on. I love the chemistry between you, and that you don't take yourselves too seriously. The Devils of D-Day and the Rats both brought many smiles to my face. Thanks for that, Ray. I picked up a tidy 1959 hardcover of Wolfbane, and it's joined my to-read pile, so thanks very much for the recommendation. Also, Phil was delighted with that feedback, and she says hi right back at you. This is a favourite comment since the one on YouTube that said, "The bloke is a dick, but the woman's alright." Next up, Jim Knight. And Jim said, "Hi Andy, I've listened for a while and have returned to the back catalogue as I reread the Elric stories in preparation for the Grognard Files Book Club in March, so I thought I'd throw some shillings in the beret as a thanks for the excellent output. I first encountered Moorcock in the very early 90s as a precocious 8 or 9-year-old who was obsessed with the fantasy and sci-fi section of my small local library in Kingston, upon Thames as opposed to Hull. And my love was cemented when I discovered Hawkwind as an equally precocious early teens second-hand vinyl hound. I did game from 9-ish to 14-ish, and played mainly Warhammer, 40k, tabletop wargame as opposed to RPG, Hero Quest, and a bit of D&D, but to be honest, it's only really been on my return to gaming in the last few years where I've reflected on the influence of Appendix N literature on gaming, and vice versa. And interestingly, the only author on the official Appendix N list I really read back in the day was Moorcock. Possibly because of how available his books were, they seemed to be everywhere. I mainly read a lot of SF, particularly loved Asimov, Heinlein, Banks, and early Hamilton. And on the fantasy front, for my sins, I read a lot of the David Eddings and Gemmell. My excuse again is that they were just what was around. Out of all that stuff though, Moorcock always had a special flavour that chimed with me, and I'm certainly someone who always found Tolkien, frankly, boring as hell. So for me, there's no debate there, but horses, courses, etc. As for the vinyl hounding, it led to various jobs in the music industry, all of which I hated, but for the last decade I've been happily ensconced at the National Sound Archive, preserving recordings and making them available to people for free. Thanks, Jim. Nice bit of synchronicity there as well, as you embarked, just as we're knocking out another Elric joint. And more on that Grognard Files book club later, but it will be taking place at something of a hallowed gathering. And finally, just as I was putting this together, we were joined by Sir Tancred Belforest, Queen's Champion. Welcome aboard, Sir Knight. Stow your armour, and we'll see you on deck for songs and victuals. And of course, thanks to our crafty jugaderos, Alexander Harris, Ian Stead, Loz, Taylor, Matthew Broom, Toby White, Tom Murphy, Mark Hebden, Graham Holden, and Jason Connolly. And of course, eternal thanks to our patron demons, Andy Darby, Clarky the Cruel, Fred Quiche, Gareth Wilson, Gwen Barlow, Imria, Janie Stim, Jay Reeser, Joe Monty, Liam J, Miles Reed-Labato, Mort Main, Neil Burton, Paul Hillary, Randall Gatlin, Steve Round, the OG patron Norman Beresford, and last, but never least, Robert McMillan. Enough yakking. Don't forget you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram with the handle @BreakfastRuins. You can email us at breakfastruins@outlook.com. The webpage is breakfastintheruins.com. We have our Patreon page too, and there are a few extra odds and sods on there. So before we play out with Fortress of the Pearl by Fortress of the Pearl, it just behooves me to say, take care, stay safe, and we will meet again soon on the Moonbeam Roads.